What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 2024 NHL Draft live stream special here at Sasquatch NHL. Great to have you guys. My name is Mike. I'm your host here. Great to have you along. Really looking forward to what should be a fun live stream with you all. Going to have some friends joining along throughout the show. I've got a few pre-recorded clips and commentary that we're going to play as well, so we'll get to that in just a little bit. From those who weren't able to join live, I just want to keep everybody included here in the community as the draft goes down and the Kraken make their pick going into their fourth season of existence. So this year's draft going down at the Sphere in Las Vegas should be a fantastic night filled with memorable moments. We've got anxious NHL prospects waiting to have their names called and continue their path towards playing professional hockey. And a big freaking welcome back to everybody here on the channel. It's great to be live again. Whether you support on YouTube or over on the podcast, I do appreciate all the support. Took a little break after the regular season from producing episodes, but back at it here. Maybe a few things through the summer, but kind of the end of season 3 here on the channel as we go outside a little bit more and enjoy the sunshine. But also, I've got a couple guests waiting right now in the green room. I don't want to make them wait any longer, so let's bring them in. We've got Jim from Kraken Fancast and our good friend Alicia Crank joining us today. What's up, you guys? How are you doing? Jim, I'll start with you.
Hey, doing wonderful. I'm in the middle of summer vacation, so doing hockey is just kind of weird right now, but I totally understand. I'm at this point every year, and I'm excited about our first pick in slot number 8.
Yeah, things are going to get going. Usually takes about 10 or 15 minutes before that first pick, so we'll have a little while to get to pick number 8, and I think Alicia's probably going to take off before we get to that pick. But how are you doing today, Alicia?
I am doing well. It is a heavy sports day. I'm loving everything about it. And I'm glad to see my friend Jim on here as well. So I hate that I'm going to talk and run, but heading down to basketball later on today. It's a whole thing that's happening in Seattle.
Yeah, lots of busy schedules. Everybody's, getting outside more here in the Seattle area. So it's great to have you guys on, even for just a little bit. We've got, people in the comments chiming in already. Looks like Donnell, if you want to hit that poll question today. The question is, what positional player do you think the Kraken will draft, a forward or a defenseman? I'm pretty sure, in my opinion, it's going to be a defenseman. We're going to kind of talk about all of this as we go. So, yeah, it's great to have you guys. Alicia, maybe if you could, fill us in on what you've got planned for the summer.
Oh, dear. Actually, a lot of it is sports related. I need to take some actual time off for myself. I don't know how to do that yet, but it's going to happen. But I think this summer, I'm also on the Seattle Sports Commission. So even though it's 2 years out, we're really busy planning around FIFA that's coming up, in 2026. So lots of planning around that for the summer. I hope to get to Vegas. I should be there today for the draft, but I'll be out there next month for, as part of my, 50th birthday.
Wow.
Old lady. So yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I wish I could go to Vegas here one of these days. We've been in the past. I kind of wanted to go for this draft, but just, timing didn't work out. But well, happy early birthday. I'm excited for you. I know,
and there's more. There's one more thing that's happening this summer.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Also, I'm part of the I guess I'm a co-founder, the Seattle NBA fans.
Nice.
because we're bringing the Sonics back. It's happening.
Right.
I just can't tell you when, but it's happening.
Oh, it's
So
definitely happening.
it is happening. So I'm excited. Lots of stuff going on, and they might be in the same space as where the Kraken are playing. So we'll see.
That would be pretty cool. I feel like everyone's kind of anticipating that happening in the news and the different rumors and this and that, and also that contract, the media contract that they just worked on in the NBA, the television side of things. So really interesting as that comes to light, and hopefully soon, because we definitely need the Sonics back. But today we're talking hockey, right? And
That's
Jim,
right.
I know you've got some thoughts, and Alicia, I know you've got some thoughts. Also, Alicia pre-recorded a few clips, so even when she takes off, we're gonna get to those in a little bit. Some of the questions today are more Kraken focused, but for those of you that are watching that aren't Kraken fans, if you are, go ahead and weigh in, maybe about your team, some commentary. I'll read off all the comments as we go here from the chat. Looks like Donnell is here saying, "What up, sir? Long time don't see you long time don't see. How's the family? Doing good here, Donnell. Great to have you on the stream, and I'll continue to read your comments off as we go. Jim, what are you
Yes.
thinking right now? I know we're going to get into this pretty quick. I'm not sure if the first pick is gone or not yet. It looks like Gary Bettman's up there, but I think we're all pretty much guessing and knowing already that the San Jose Sharks are going to take Macklin Celebrini at pick number 1. It could get a little interesting after that, though. I've seen a lot of different mock drafts. Even the second position isn't completely dialed in. So maybe if you could just give us a little, where are you thinking right now after Macklin?
Well, you know, it's going to be Macklin, obviously. I mean, even you have him slated. You're a big San Jose guy. After that, it could be the defenseman from the OHL, or it's I don't know, man. The first 3 they think are pretty locked, and then after that, all the way through us to even 10, it could just be flipped everywhere. So
Yeah.
I'm a little leery. I'm not leery in a positive way. I'm happy about everything, because no matter what, we're going to get a great pick, whether it's a forward or a D. But I think those first 3 picks are pretty much what they've been thinking. There's been a lot of movement in the last month where guys have been moving up from 7, 6 all the way up to 3, 4, 5. So it's going to be a weird call.
Yeah. So I think I was watching Craig Button, his mock draft yesterday, trying to do my homework and get caught up. So between him and a few others that I watched, I don't think any of them agreed on how the top 3 or 4 were going to go. But I have heard, some pretty good consensus on at least the first couple of picks. So we'll see what happens here. But Alicia, you spent a lot of time in the Bay Area, if I'm not mistaken, and I know that you went to a couple Sharks games here and there, but you're a Detroit Red Wings fan at heart, right? So I don't know, maybe if you could put your Sharks hat on for a minute, what's going through your mind as a San Jose fan in the Bay Area, getting their first round pick in their entire existence?
Right. Well, it's a catch-22, right? Because they get the first pick, but it's also because they didn't have a great season,
Yeah.
last time. So I think that there's kind of a balance there. But I do think that one of the things that they should be thinking about, just as I think that the Kraken should be thinking about, I'm hoping that they're going to pick differently than before, that they're going to be super ambitious in who they try to pick to kind of round everything out. So if I have to jump back to the Kraken one, and I know that I did a
Yeah.
pre-recording of this already, I really need the Kraken to pick a defensive. That has to happen. That's where we've been struggling the most. That needs to happen. So I think from a San Jose perspective, though, I think they need a bit more showmanship, for lack of a better description. I think the team has gotten a little lackluster, kind of in the fun area of because that was the main reason for going to those games when I was there. So
Yeah.
as you alluded to, I was there from like 98 to 14. And it was just a lot more fun to go to those games. And I think that's how they were able to build up the transplant base, if you
Right.
will. So I think they lost some of that along the way. And I'm hoping that they get that back with the picks that they choose. And I think their first pick is a good start.
Yeah, I think the Sharks did really well selling tickets to this draft watch party. If I remember right, it was at a bigger venue, maybe even SAP Center, but one of the executives had posted that they had sold quite a few tickets, and that's great to get that Sharks fandom, reinvigorated, something to kind of build around, and a foundational piece in Macklin Celebrini. It's going to be fun to watch this kid develop in the Bay Area and see what that Sharks team can do. Always love the Sharks uniforms and their logo and everything, but they've also got some competition in that arena. Jim and Alicia, the Ducks and the Kings also just rebranded. I don't know if you want to share your initial thoughts on that, Jim. Maybe you go first. I know you're a big logo and uniforms guy, so let's get your take on that.
But am I really? So,
You're our fashion expert, Jim.
am I? Jeez. That's anyway. So the rebranding of Fanatics, and they introduced was it two teams? Yeah, the Ducks and the Kings. Anybody else? I thought there was another one. No. Anyway,
Uh,
and Fanatics has just been getting raked over the coals for the last however many years, 3, 4, 5 years, about the quality and everything. And I just kept telling people, listen, there's no way they're not going to put their number one top product online and have it be trash. I can go back in history with CCM and Reebok. Everything on the lower line went through the same stuff. They're about to announce their first pick, so I will
Yep.
stop as soon as I see the movement. But I see it happening here with Mike Greer. I'm going to stop right now.
Yeah, and Mike Greer has been a busy man with the San Jose Sharks, trying to shed some of the contracts over the years, move some players, some foundational pieces, and we've got a Jumbo Joe Thornton appearance, the beautiful bearded man on stage.
Oh,
What a
God.
guy. One of my favorite players of all time.
One of
And looks
Boston's
like-
worst trades, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they ended up winning a cup. What was it?
Yeah.
2000.
You can look at it that way, too, as well. You're right.
Yeah. But, I mean, can you imagine the Sharks over those years without Jumbo and Patty? I mean, those
Oh,
just absolute anchors through the years.
Those are-
And there's the pick. Very cool to see Jumbo Joe put that pick in for the Sharks, Macklin Celebrini.
Yeah.
It's official now. I already had it on the board, but
Ding ding.
it's official. So,
yay.
yeah, Alicia, I don't know. What did you think about the new logo and jersey setups for the Kings and the Ducks?
Yes. I was looking at the Ducks specifically when they were, starting to roll that out. And I think someone online actually said what I was thinking, which was part of that rollout felt very, very Kraken-ish, with the eye and kind of, the deep kind of thing going. I like the
Mhm.
colors. I like what they're going to do with it. But I will say I'm one of those people that is not a Fanatics fan. And I am hoping that Jim is right, that they are going to,
We all are.
put the good stuff out there. But that's also part of the reason why I bought a ton of jerseys this past season. Because my thought was, I'm not buying a Fanatics one, at least not the first season that they take over. But I will be happy to be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, same
So-
here. I think I'm going to wait and see a little bit. Go ahead, Jim.
I see. Look, they're made in the exact same factory that the jerseys have always been made in Quebec. Okay. It's just who signed the contract, bottom line, and then the design team. So they're using the all approved fabrics by the NHL and the top line merchandise. Now let's just play this game. If Adidas did everything down the line, the replica, everything, all t-shirts, hats, everything, you would find troubles all the way down the line.
Yeah.
That top piece is always going to be past every inspection, right? So that's just the way it is. They developed a reputation through all that lower stuff.
Yeah.
And it carried on, and everybody just wants to automatically throw that, and I get it at the same time. The release, I thought it was okay. I'm glad they went back to the chevron. I love that. You can't get up and examine it. I noticed they lost the dimples in the shoulders, which were always kind of weird to me on the Adidas in the first place. I always thought it looked like packing bubbles. but I think it'll be fine. It was. We'll just see. You got no choice. It's going to happen. Like I said, back in the starter days, there were some really trashy jerseys back then. So you go back 40 years, there's even CCM had some issues on their replicas with the peeling of the print that was ironed in. So we can pick it all apart. It's just that and the thing is 20, 30 years ago, they weren't doing anything but a jersey and a replica jersey. They weren't doing the hats. They weren't doing any of that other stuff for the most part. Maybe an occasional starter jacket or something. So now
Yeah.
you've got, 1,000 things on the line that you can pick apart that are made in different factories, right?
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Donnell chimed in here, says that Utah jersey, and look, wish it was still the Coyotes. Really wanted to see what their jersey would look like in the Fanatics Authentic Pro jersey. And I feel like it's going to be, it's tough because I think we all loved that Coyotes branding, the Kachina logo, the colors, everything was pretty cool with that. Over the years, they had tried some different styles and things. I wasn't a big fan of the reverse retro for Arizona, but they're gone now. So a whole new chapter, whole new story for Utah. This year is going to be fairly generic, and then next year I think is when we get the official logos and team name. But yep, just I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, Alicia. Just a brand new team, maybe remembering back to when the Kraken had yet to announce the Kraken name and the logo, just that feeling leading up to that, and that Utah's going to get to go through that as well.
Yeah, I remember, I actually lost out on being a season ticket holder initially because I did not want to put a deposit down until I knew the logo, until I knew the name.
Yeah.
So I was like, I did not want to be a season ticket holder for the Sockeyes. Sorry. Was just not
Really?
it. I wasn't there.
Really?
I was like, I wanted
Wow.
Kraken from day one, but I wasn't willing to take the risk until afterward. But then I joined a new group, so that was great. So I think I'm hoping that the same thing for Utah. I hope that they're going to really have something that's compelling as you come in. I mean, we're such an eye candy generation now. It's like we want to. It's got to look sharp. It's got to look clean. It's got to not be peeling. So I think whatever they come out with, it's got to be. It's got to be sharp, and they got to get it right the first time.
I always laugh when I show my daughter something that I think is cool, and then she's like, "That's trash, Dad. Get it away from me." So I think the younger generation, they definitely have a different opinion on things, and it's good probably to market to that generation as well. So,
but you know what? I think a lot of it has to do with what Jim just said. We can go back 30, 40 years and find flaws and all the things, but we didn't have social media. We didn't have the capacity to be like, oh, word didn't travel as fast. Like I loved my starter jackets, back then, but it was a purist kind of thing, right? But I think now, if we knew then what we knew now, maybe the love for it wouldn't be so significant. So I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be great, and I think that it does also put some pressure on the folks that create these things, like Fanatics and stuff, to say, okay, let's make sure that this is tight because we can't blow it, and it's going to get out very quickly if something goes wrong.
Donnell chimed in here just a little bit earlier, talking more pick related and who's where and what might happen. Donnell's East Coast, so kind of Devils focused, Islanders focused, chiming in saying, I think the Devils will trade or keep their pick at 10. Islanders need to stay at 20. This is the first time the Islanders have picked in the first round for quite a while. I can't remember. I think it's been at least a few years. Maybe Islanders fans can fill me in on that. He also says, believe the Rangers will stay at 30 with their draft picks. So thanks for weighing in, Donnell. We are going to announce the picks. I know we're talking about jerseys and logos and stuff. That's kind of the fun stuff. But we are going to announce each pick as they come in through the first round here, break things down, interact with you guys in the chat as we go. And Jim, I don't want to fail to announce that once again, Mr. Jim of Kraken Fancast won the Game Day Prediction Challenge. That's 2 years in a row, back-to-back champion. He's going to hoist the mini cup. I haven't reissued it to you officially, but we're going to maybe do that later this summer at a meetup. So do you have
we'll get together.
Well, guys, I got to dip.
Yeah.
I got to dip out. Got to head down to Climate Pledge. But have a great rest of the round one. And I'm just going to throw it out there that one, I hope that, again, that the first pick is a defenseman. And I'm going to throw out the name Sam Dickinson.
Ooh, I like it.
I'm being bold. So
love it.
Okay.
We'll see where he lands. But take care, guys. I'll see you soon. I'll be listening on the road.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Yep, we'll have you again and have a great night. And we're also going to play Alicia's clip here, clips that she
Oh, here's
recorded
number two,
for
right?
some of the questions. We'll get to the questions too. I'll ask you some of those, Jim, as we go. But we're getting close to pick number 2.
Here it
Blackhawks, the
comes.
pick is in.
Dab it up. What do you mean?
I think most thought Demidov would go.
Yeah.
And
What's he coming up to give the jersey, eh?
so here's
Rookie
the
of the year,
selection.
handing it out.
And as good as Connor Bedard is, the Blackhawks were still not very good last year. So obviously picking very high. And there you go. Levshunov, Artem
Yep.
Levshunov goes number 2. I know some thought Demidov would go
Top-ranked D.
second. And Levshunov, defenseman, Michigan State. So not really a surprise, but I think there was some question between who would go first, or sorry, who
Yeah.
would go second or third. What do you think, Jim?
He was in the top 3 all along. Highest ranked defenseman in all the scouting bureaus. This guy's good. He's two-way. He's everywhere. He can play PP right away, but he's probably going to be 2 seasons out, I'm guessing. Maybe 1. I don't know. He's highly touted.
Yeah, I think there also is some decision making that's going to have to go into whether Celebrini plays another year at college or not. And I know that that's TBD. So Celebrini first, Levshunov second.
Yep.
Update the
This
board
guy's
here.
Guy's a good player right here. Good size too. So
Always
yeah,
love
as
the
far as
highlight reels that they have available for these guys on demand for the draft. It's pretty
Mike, I
neat.
do not have the cup in this room. It's out in my main. It's one of the very few hockey items I have in the main room.
That's okay.
But I do
I
have the
mean-
box. Right. I still got the cherry box. I'm not going to damage that at all.
Well, that just means you're taking good care of it, Jim. I do appreciate that.
Well, I freak out. Wouldn't it be the worst to just like, oh, here, Jim trashed it and gave it back? It'd be like when Michael Ryder dropped the cup on the party deck and it dented the bowl.
You can always get a new one. I think
No,
I found
I
it on
can't do that,
eBay.
It's gotta be real, man.
Yeah. So there's the second pick, Chicago Blackhawks. Like I said, we're going to get to some Kraken-related questions as we go here. We had the few people weigh in the background. Jim, we're going to let you respond as well. Maybe I'll just kind of get into that a little bit as we wait for the next pick here. Anaheim on the clock. Also, I have the new logo in there. You can't really see it because it's small, but I really do love the new kind of reimagined throwback for the Anaheim Ducks, and that's about all I like about the Anaheim Ducks. I'm not really a fan.
Yeah, I knew you would actually.
But yeah, they did a really good job on that. So, Jim,
Let's
let me read a few of these off as we kind of
Sure.
wait for the next pick. And like I said, we had people weigh in, and I'm going to play these clips as we go. But first one is just for you, Jim. We'll start. What positional player, and we kind of already talked about this just a little bit, what do you think the Kraken are going to go after at spot number 8, a forward or a defenseman? And what is your personal preference on this?
All right. So typically, the build is goaltender out, so then D's next. And I would imagine they might be doing that. I'm looking at the prospects. It's not heavy what we have down there on that. But unless there's been a trend in the last 3 or 4 years of best available player straight up at position, at, whatever count you come in at. And, I've looked at guys like Boyum. I'd like to see if he can land at 8. I would take him in a heartbeat, the defenseman in the U.S. Development system. But if he's not, I can take any one of these forwards at 8. So in mind, they might have a D in mind, but they could easily change that rather quickly, depending on who picks above them, and go for best available. I'd take Tej again if he's available. That kid's come a long way. I saw his very first rookie year as a T-Bird. Um, that I'd look at Cole Eiserman if he's even hanging out at 10. I might even bump up to there. So there's all kinds of good stuff here. That Berkeley Catton is a solid pick as well in those top 10 picks. We could come out with either one. It doesn't matter to me. I think they're going to shoot for D, but if the D's are gone, I think they'll grab one of those forwards, no problem.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with you on this. Alicia responded as well. She wants a defenseman, so we'll see. We're getting there. We're 2 picks in. I think last year the first round took about 3 hours. So, yeah, we're gonna try to entertain you as we go as best we can. And read a few comments off here. Joshua, what's up from the East Coast? Saying, "Good evening, folks. Plane just landed in DC. We'll be listening during the drive home." Chris Porter also weighed in. Your podcast mate there. Did I not invite Chris? What happened? Maybe we should invite Chris right now. Chris, you can jump on if you want.
Yeah. I mentioned to him that you had put an invite to me, and I remember the year before you put one out to him, but he was not available. So you probably just, it just popped your mind. But I did talk to him last night about it. He did sound like he had a little bit of a busy kind of schedule. If he's available, he can drop in.
Yeah, I'll send him.
Send him a hidden invite if you want.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll just
hi, Chris.
do this in the background. Sorry, Chris, I didn't invite you. I'm a terrible person.
It's
busy
summer,
though. Striatic, what's up? Good to see you. Says, my personal preference is future mayor of Bellevue, Zeev Buyum. And
I agree.
I mean, that's a fun name to say. Hopefully I'm saying it just right. It's not an easy one to read off, but Chris says, I'm only able to watch portions of the draft and your broadcast here. Okay, so I don't feel as bad. But yeah. I tried to invite everybody from last year. Rick was actually going to join as well, but he had to go to the Mariners game today. So, everybody's out having a good time, and
here comes
nothing wrong with that. I told him, I said, I would actually prefer to go to a Mariners game than maybe be watching the NHL draft, but I don't know. The NHL draft is definitely fun. Chris says only able to watch portions. Yeah, no problem.
That's a drop on the board there. A little bit of one.
So Beckett Seneca goes to the Anaheim Ducks at 3. Interesting.
Very
I'm
interesting
not sure
because he's a right winger. He's got good size. He's going to grow. He's going to fill out. But he was ranked roughly in the 8, 9, 10 area. And Demidov is a right winger. Maybe they didn't want to toy around with those, mysterious contracts and with the Russian situation, like we went through a couple of years there in a row. That comes into play. Are you ever going to see that player in a 2-year period type of deal? That's a drop in picks. They must be eyeing him.
Chris agrees. Ducks pick is somewhat of a surprise. Seems like he got picked higher than predicted. And, based on the mock drafts that I did my homework on, I would agree with that. I think he was kind of down in that 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
Maybe in that
second
range.
highest right winger rank. So
that Beckett looked surprised too. So on the broadcast, yeah.
Interesting.
It's always cool to see these guys get their name called, though.
I agree. And it also opens up the field from here after that. Just our door is huge now too. So
yeah.
I mean, if somebody like Boyum can fall into us, oh boy, that's something.
That would be awesome. I think the Kraken even talked about being prepared for lots of different outcomes because they, and I'm sure all teams would say the same thing, but it's good to just hear that and know that they're going through the process because this is a pretty unpredictable draft, 1 through 5 even, obviously 1 was pretty much known, but 2 through 5 could get interesting, 2 through 6, 7, and then the Kraken are on the board and, maybe it's a couple guys are available that you weren't expecting.
Right.
So, Jim, real quick here, any other thoughts on just your personal preference on which way we go now that we know that maybe a change in the shuffling of the cards of who's available? And then I'm going to play a couple clips here from the community.
You want me to lay into that or what?
I was just saying if your opinion has changed now that Seneca was picked a little higher
No,
than expected.
you, I think you know me well enough to know I, I'm in search of power forwards every day, my whole life, and that's an
Yeah.
extremely hard grab. So, you know, there's a lot of not non-power forwards, and there's a lot of good forwards, but bona fide power forwards are hard to come by. I still, it, I'll go either way here. I think that we have a nice draft pool right now of prospects we can use in draft and exchange and trades and everything else. There's a lot of guys that we love that are, tens prospects, and we'll probably be missing two or three of them in the near future, 2 or 3 years in trades that we're attached
Yeah.
to already that have never really played with the Kraken. So you need to just keep stocking those cupboards, as they say, you know,
Yeah.
and, our D, when you look at our D, it's a little light, in Coachella, in my opinion. Autovainen, I could see him coming up, in the future. But, other than Riker, yeah, you think you need a little more stock of some D because we've got a ton of forwards. But like I said, I tend to lean to forwards, because our 5-on-5, our D was sitting at 15, 16 last year. Our 5-on-5 play was horrible,
Yeah.
28. So I always want forwards. Our special teams were kind of meh.
Yep.
Give me some forwards.
See, I think if I lean defenseman, I would lean, offensive puck mover type
Yeah,
defenseman. I don't think we
I
really need
agree.
a shutdown D. I don't know if we really need, a big monster like Saleyev.
Yeah,
I don't know. So
I'm with you.
I think we need offense in general. I think that's the priority this offseason. And our defense wasn't too bad. Goaltending's a big part of that as well. So you got to kind of all lump that together. But yeah, forwards scoring great. But I do think that they're going to pick a defenseman. That's just seems like the
Well, like I
MO.
said, if Perrick is still available or Boyum, then yeah, I'll see
Yeah.
it. But if they're gone, go give me Tej, give me
Hmm.
Catton, give me Eiserman, any one of those guys, especially
Yep.
those two in the U.S. development program have been kicking butt. So
Stratic said Beckett. Seneca said, "Oh my God."
on what?
Just when he got picked because he wasn't
Oh yeah,
expecting it.
yeah. I
Kind of
mean,
funny.
it's kind of almost off the board mini, out of the top 10 almost. So that's kind of off the board in a little ways.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So,
I was
oh, sorry. Go ahead. I
no,
cut you
I'm
off.
done. Nope, I'm good.
I was just going to say, before we get to the next real pick, I did want to go around the clips that I've gathered here. We've got a few friends. This one in particular is from Derek, and he weighed in on his draft preference. Hopefully, everything comes through and you guys can hear it. But Derek is also part of the crew working over on the BTW Seattle account that they just launched a brand new YouTube channel. You could probably check them out here on YouTube while you're hanging out, watching live streams, but they do a good job over there. A lot of entertaining, fun things going on. They were streaming for PSF last season. So a great group over there. Just want to give them a shout out and thank you for contributing. Both Derek and Heather sent some videos in. So here's Derek's personal preference on what the Kraken should do at pick number 8.
Hmm.
Hi everyone, a quick little intro. My name's Derek. I was on the Icebreakers for the last 3 years. I'm past the crack on Twitter, and I'm 1/5 of the new group that we just formed, Beneath the Waves for all Kraken coverage. It's BTWSEA on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. So go follow us there. Super excited for the NHL draft to be tomorrow. Super excited Mike with Sasquatch NHL reached out. And I just want to share some thoughts on some questions that he posed to me. So the first one was, what positional player do you predict the Kraken will draft first at the number 8 spot, a forward or defenseman? I think it's got to be a defenseman. The prospect pool at forward is absolutely juiced with Shane Wright, Jagger Furcus, David Goyette, Carson Rakop, Yanni Newman. I could go on literally all day. For defense, we have Riker, maybe Ty Nelson, maybe Lucas Dragicevic. It feels much less stout to me than our forward pool. And Now I think the question would be between, do we want like a defensive defenseman like Silyev, or an offensive defenseman like Yakimchuk, Buim, or Parek? And I think it clearly has to be an offensive defenseman. Outside of Vince Dunn, we have no defenseman that can reliably jumpstart or carry offensive pressure. And simply put, the Kraken's defense last year was the second best in the league, with 2.22 expected goals against per game. And their offense was 28th in the league with 144 goals scored. So our defense was elite. It was top 5, and our offense was abominable, and bottom 5. Everything right now needs to be offensive focused, because we are heavily top-sided toward the defensive side of the game. And as I said, personally, I would want to draft either Carter Yakimchuk of the WHL or Zane Parek of the OHL.
All right, so that was Derek kind of weighing in on which direction he thought the Kraken should go. In the meantime, we had a couple of picks come in. Well, Seneca had already happened. Lindstrom, Caden Lindstrom goes to the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, I don't know. A couple of these a little sooner than I thought for both Seneca and Lindstrom. Christopher Porter says, Beckett said during a short interview with Leah Hextall that Anaheim was not one of the teams he had recent meeting with. Hence, he was surprised. Go ahead, Jim.
Wow, that's pretty interesting with no meeting there.
Yeah.
Lindstrom, it depends on what chart you're looking at, but Caden was second highest ranked center overall. Came in number 3 prospects, so that's where they take all 15 of the guys and come out with averages. So he's there at 3, but yeah, he's still got Demidov on the board. He's still got Parek. He's still got, you got some people here. So this is all up in the air right now. This is great.
It's never a dull moment during the NHL draft. No trades or anything yet, but oh my goodness, we have a Ty Jacobs sighting in the chat. Is this thing on?
Oh, wow.
What's up, Ty? We didn't know you were still alive. Just kidding. Ty's been a busy guy. He just moved. So how's the move going, Ty? Let us know in the chat. Vote on that poll question. Hit the like button for me, guys, if you're watching today, and gals, and enjoying the stream. Trying to keep it interesting as we go through the picks here. The Montreal Canadiens are on the clock. We're also giving kind of a rundown from some of those in the Kraken community here. A few questions I've asked. The first one was, what was your personal draft preference for the Kraken at spot number 8? Jim has weighed in. Alicia's weighed in. Derek at Pass the Crack on Twitter or X also weighed in. And I've got a couple more here that I want to share before we get to that Kraken pick. So let's do that real quick. Ty says, I'm on my phone in an empty place cleaning walls. Nice. It's always good to have a blank slate to get things going. So Daniel Allen in the chat, also great to see you, says, hope to see you all at Dev Camp on Friday the 5th. I'm glad you brought that up, Daniel, because I've got the graphic for that here. Excited. Whoops, that's the wrong graphic, but we're going to switch to this one. July 3rd, Kraken Community Iceplex, doors at 8 a.m. So I don't know if this graphic is out of date or if they changed it, but that's what I had when I got it. So July 3rd, Kraken Development Camp. And if you're a season ticket holder, I believe there was a sign up to go to that. Jim, were you able to snag tickets?
Yeah, Chris picked up a couple. So I think that's the second day though for season ticket holder. The first day I think is open to the public, and the third day is too, I believe. So
Gotcha.
Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what I read. I will probably be at least 2 of them for sure, and stupid me will probably be at all 3.
I don't think I'm going to be able to make it again. I just got too much going on, but okay, quick one. We've got the Habs on the clock. This was the response from Heather, also part of the BTW crew. Just launched their YouTube channel. I think they are streaming live today as well. So go give them some support, subscribe, like on their stream. So here's Heather's reaction to when I asked her, what do you prefer the Kraken do at spot number? Actually, no, that wasn't. Hold on a minute. I got the wrong video queued up here. We'll save Heather's video for later. This is Will's draft preference because I don't think Heather weighed in on the first draft pick. we're going to talk about the Maddie Beniers extension next, and that's what she weighed in on. So here's Will's reaction to what he would prefer the Kraken do at pick number 8.
Well, as far as the draft is concerned, pretty much everybody has the Kraken going with defense right now, and it's not hard to see why, considering that we do need more defensive prospects in our talent pool. Barring a major run on defensemen in the first 7 picks, I don't see us picking anything but a D-man. A name that a lot of people have on their wish list for the Kraken is Zeev Buium, defenseman out of University of Denver, one of the top scorers in NCAA last year. Great offensive potential. I don't think he makes it all the way to number 8. Of course, I didn't think Shane Wright would drop to us 2 years ago, but if Buium's gone, and he would be a great pick for us, I'm thinking maybe Sam Dickinson, another left shot defenseman out of who played for the London Knights last year. Maybe a bit more of an all-around prospect, a little bit bigger at 6'3", not quite as proficient offensively, but would be a good prospect for us.
Thanks, Will. And Chris confirmed that's right about July 3rd. Jim and I will be there. Season ticket holders were invited for July 3rd, so that's good info. But yeah, should be fun if you're able to go. Looks like the Montreal Canadiens pick is in at number 5. Here's the selection happening. And Jim, I might prep you kind of for the next question. We're going to talk about the Maddie Beniers extension, which we're expecting to come soon here in the summer. We're going to talk about what your preference would be for term and dollars. Maybe what your preference is versus what you think will happen. We can talk about that here in just a second. But here's the and weigh in on the chat. Weigh in the chat, please. Let me know what your thoughts are. Maddie Beniers extension coming up for the Kraken, and make sure you hit that poll question right now. Poll results are at 69%. People think that's a great number. 69% of people in the chat think the Kraken will pick a defenseman. So, and here's the pick from Montreal. Ivan Demidov. So, yeah, I thought he was going to go 2nd or 3rd, and here he is now at 5th. And St. Petersburg, great player, right?
Yeah, a lot of scouts have said he's the European version of our number 1 Celebrini in a different way. Same style of game in a way, but he does play in the league over there that is not as strong as our development programs or any of others. But this guy is pretty high skill dude. So I'm you know what? Pick 5. We're in good shape. We're in good shape.
Yeah, Sean in the chat agrees. Kraken will have some nice choices at 8. Weighing in on the Maddie Beniers contract extension. 4 by 5.5 is kind of what Sean is thinking. Jim, give us your thoughts on that area of things. Maddie Beniers extension.
Okay, so this is such a tough deal because I and lots of other people have literally been thinking about this for a solid year and a half because we knew it would come. And if he would have had an outstanding year last year to follow up his rookie of the year, this contract would have probably already been settled, early. And it's almost a blessing that he kind of didn't have a good year if it comes to contract talk with Ronnie and the boys, because you can almost look at a bridge situation, I would think, because I don't know if you want to get locked into a 7-8 year term, because that's what usually happens on big names, second contracts, future stars, future superstars, whatever. And those numbers are out of control. They're like anywhere from 7 to 8 on an 8-term bridge here to see, what he can actually do in the meantime. They did that with some players that I'm familiar with that I liked on other clubs. And on a bridge deal that, it could be anywhere from 2 to 4 years, and they're not popular anymore like they were 6-7 years ago. And, maybe 5 to 6, somewhere in there. So I would like to see a bridge type situation, maybe 3-4 at 5-7-5, whatever. But I just don't know what's up Ronnie's sleeve with this. I know he wants him around a long time. If they can work a little bit lower that top man and get him on a long term, then I would take it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's going to come in probably 5.5 plus dollar wise. I
Right.
think would you say 5.75? That's probably more
Yeah.
realistic where it's going to be. Um,
Because of cap.
yeah, and term wise, I could see Ron going 5.
Could
But
you?
yeah, I think that the
I can't
dollar
see
amount's
the
going to
agent
be a
doing that.
little. Yeah, well, let me kind of qualify that. I can see him
Yeah.
going that route. I think in that case, Maddie would want higher dollar amount just because
Yeah.
then you're not able to get to that second UFA opportunity very soon.
Right.
Or sorry, not UFA. He's restricted at this point, but you see what I'm getting at. But
Yes, totally.
honestly, I think it feels more like it's going to be a bridge deal, like people are suggesting. 3,
It
4
has to be.
years. That just feels better. It allows both the player and the team some flexibility. Prove it a little bit, see where you're at,
Right.
go from there. But
Well,
I
I
think
know.
if last year had gone better,
Yeah.
obviously negotiating power goes to Benir's camp. But yeah, I think it's
Right.
going to be a 3-year deal.
Well, I know you were thinking just like I was at those games, sitting in the stands, going, "All right, we're in a different situation than we thought we were in the summer, right?"
Yeah,
Because we were just automatically assuming the trajectory would just, do, but kind of backspin there, like the whole club, and that puts the leverage on the management. So,
yeah.
and I know he likes it here. That's always a benefit. Um, so we'll see. It's been a hard peg to try to figure this one out.
Yeah, I think I've suggested a few times too. I really wanted to see Maddie kind of get on that aggressive training schedule in the off season. He was maybe a little too easy to move off his skates at times.
Very easy.
We joke about that a little bit, but I kind of remember back to when Patrick Marleau was a rookie, second year, third year. Marleau became known for being one of the best in shape, trained athletes, hardest to move off the puck along the boards. He didn't have immense size or anything like that, but incredible work ethic, really heavy along the boards, like I said, and just, solid. Like you never saw Patrick Marleau get railroaded. And I think maybe just that idea, maybe and I don't know specifically what Matty Beniers is doing in his training regimen through the off season, but feels like maybe that type of approach would be very beneficial. Because he kind of got knocked around a bit last year and
Oh
first
yeah,
year, right, Jim?
totally. And what is he listed at 6'1" or 6? I can't remember, but he's just thin guy. I mean, even Allison, my wife, has commented in warmups like, he's got airtime in his pants, between his pants and his legs. It just tells you he's a smaller framed guy.
Yeah.
Um, and he said every different style players just by minute are different on the puck, on puck protection. So I used to say the same thing about Shane that you're saying
Hmm.
about him too. Like, but I've already seen the growth and the build in Shane, but they're different style players for sure. Um, yes, I agree with you, but I'd also like to see him be protected better from his
Yeah.
teammates, which
Yep.
that's one of our softest things on the whole club is we're soft.
Definitely. Yeah, they need to add a little bit of grit, a little grit mentality. Um, in general, just got to be changing that identity a little bit from
Yep.
soft to difficult to play against. And yeah, you don't want your guys targeted, especially your stars.
No.
Sean asking, when do you think that the deal for Beniers will get done and Tovey? Personally, I think it's going to be early on in free agency because you got to figure things out with them before you can go after, possibly a sniper or something like that in free agency.
Right.
So maybe even before July 1st, but
There
that's
goes
cutting it
Tej.
pretty close.
Utah.
All right, so
Wow.
the pick's in for Utah, Tej Aginla, and that's exciting
Wow.
for the franchise getting booted up there. Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Well, pick 6. I mean, yes and no. One or two spots either way, right?
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, Utah though. I don't know.
I have great memories of Jerome Aginla eliminating the Sharks in the conference finals back in the day, but Yeah.
I have great memories of Jerome, period, because I was a season ticket holder for the Tacoma Rockets when he was coming through. So for 2 years, I'd sit right next to him when he was in the penalty box, and I watched that kid grow to what he is. Amazing.
Yeah. Striatic agrees. Tej a little early. Tej
By
to
at least
Utah.
2.
Sean weighed in. Sean also agrees with us. A little soft. Kraken a little too soft. And I think that they want to address that. I think that the glaring need in front of that, though, is scoring. It was pretty woeful last season. So we'll see what they can do there. But you got to protect your scores like Jim is talking about. You can't be pushed around and seen as a soft team. Ryan Smith getting the crowd riled up. Gonna like this group. Yeah, that's good. So that's one of the things. I have it muted, so I don't get to. Obviously, I can't broadcast the real event. That would be, you just can't do that. But yeah, so any details from the broadcast that you guys are noticing, or sounds, or anything like that, go ahead and fill me in the chat, and I'll try to read it off. It's kind of fun to get those reactions as well. Like earlier when Seneca went a little bit early, he was surprised when he went to the Ducks. Sean also agrees scoring is issue number 1. Before we get too far, I did want to have this. We're talking about the Matty Beniers extension just here for next few minutes. Heather also weighed in. I wanted to play that video clip. Here's what Heather had to say and what she thought about the Matty Beniers extension coming up here for the Kraken.
Hey Sasquatch and friends, Heather Moonka here. Thanks so much for letting me hop on and share some thoughts around what's coming up for the Kraken. First sort of topic I want to talk about is Matty Beniers. So we know that he's up for an extension, and we all love Matty, and I know that he's going to stick around for a while, but he did have a sophomore slump, and not that he's a bad player. I mean, he's an excellent player, and he did a lot of things that I think maybe didn't show on the stat sheets necessarily. So I still think he's a valuable member of the team and should absolutely be extended. But before the season, I almost was leaning towards that long-term extension, like 8x8, and I sort of have totally rolled that back just because of the production. And, the season wasn't super great for anyone. But I think now we're looking more at somewhat of a bridge deal for him. And I do think, I don't know, hard to say, but maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years if we're really being generous here. And I think probably around that 4 million mark. Like, I do think that's a really solid plan for him. It also allows him to really, take this summer, and I think he has a lot to look at and a lot to work on and a lot to improve on, and really show up next season and prove that he's worth that. Maybe good that we kind of had this slump for him and we can re-sign him and extend now before he kind of breaks out, because I do think he has that potential to do that. So that's what I'm feeling on Matty. I'm excited to see what it is, whatever it is, because I do think he is definitely a core piece of the team moving forward.
That was Heather Moonka, and she weighed in on Matty Beniers and the extension that we're expecting here in the coming days or maybe weeks. But I think it is important to get that done soon, because it really does dictate what you can do in free agency, right, Jim?
Yes, but I also have a feeling for some reason it might go on for a while. So thankfully, I think the last total I looked at, we had, what was it, 23.5 mil on the cap, right? Availability.
Yeah, right
So,
around there.
I mean, we can play the patient game if they're going to. But yeah, you've got the order right. You want to get that done and then start looking at your pocket and your balance of what's going on for your free agency. Are you going to go out and grab a top 6 guy that's going to cost you $8 to $10 million bucks? So, this can be a drain. But I think we've got a decent cushion no matter what to play around here a little bit with time.
So the Ottawa Senators right now are on the clock. We're waiting for that pick to come in. We're discussing the Kraken here, Kraken-focused podcast and YouTube channel. If you're new to the channel and enjoying the stream, hit that like button for me right now and subscribe. Do lots of fun things over here. Trivia coming up this fall again. Going to have another rematch. Emerald City Hockey and an opponent TBD. They're usually good for that. So, nothing confirmed yet, but we do that in the fall. Jim, like I mentioned
Mhm.
earlier, is our game day prediction challenge winner. We do that over on X and twitter.com. So Jim won back-to-back years. So lots of fun things. So thanks for dropping by today. If you're not a regular here, and if you are a regular here, thanks for being back. Appreciate all the support, you guys, and check out the podcast as well. Okay, so the Ottawa pick is in. They're reading it off on the stage right now, and then after that, Seattle Kraken are going to make their pick. So we're right on schedule here with the clips. I don't think I missed anybody's take on who we would prefer to draft in Seattle. And there's the pick. Ottawa Senators select Carter Yakimchuk
Oh, we're
out
we were in
of
good shape.
Calgary, the WHL 6'3", 200 pounds, 202 pounds from Fort McMurray, Alberta, 18 years old. So I think the first 10 or 12 picks, as far as ranking, the general consensus, but the order has gone a little bit differently than I would have expected.
Yep.
So
Although,
yeah,
Tej went at 7, and his last ranking through Elite Prospects had him at 6. So we wanted to say he's a little early, but he's right on target. This one was off. But man, there's a lot of good cards on the table right now. Interesting.
now I got to remember how to spell Yakimchuk as I
You want me to
update the
tell you?
graphic. Oh, there we go.
It's just like it sounds. Is it not?
No, it is, but then I switched it to CK at the end instead of just K. It's
Oh.
one thing to pronounce them, but then to respell them,
You went.
I think I got it. Yakemchuk. Yakimchuk.
Yeah. Yeah. You had it in the Russian spelling.
Maybe we'll do a spelling bee quiz
Ooh,
here on the channel.
That could be brutal.
Hockey names spelling bee. That's going to go in the idea book.
Or
Remind me of that one.
it's either that or Finnish pronunciation hockey names.
Oh man.
God.
All right, so the Kraken are on the board.
Oh boy.
Nice view of the
All right.
sphere, the flyover. How you feeling, Jim? What anticipation building now? What's going through your mind?
How am I feeling? I want Boyden right now. I want Zeb Boyum. Denver.
It seems to be consensus, if it was
He is-
possible in the chat.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's actually here because he did jump in the last month pretty good. But there's, Berkeley Catton, Dickinson, Eiserman's, down a little lower, but I love that kid. Or if you want, you could go up and grab the second highest D ranked man, and that's Zane Perrick. So he's actually ranked higher than Boyum, but they're a little bit different style here. Not by much.
So, this pick might kind of reveal Ron Francis's inner workings a little bit, right? Because there are some interesting options, and he holds his cards very close. You don't always know what Ronnie's thinking. So, yeah, I feel like we're going to kind of get some knowledge revealed to us here as far as how he wants to build this with this next pick. Even if, this player's obviously not going to probably be with the big club next fall, but over time, these picks accumulate and they create your foundation and your strategy overall. Sean says some great options available. Striatic has goosebumps. I love that. Honestly, trading back
Right on,
says wouldn't be a bad thing to trade back. Also commented,
True.
I guess Tej is not so much early as teams aren't valuing defenders as much as expected, and maybe that's kind of a trend this year.
Well, either that or we are in the era, and we have been for a couple, 2-3 years now, on the, draft is needed, period. The best available player, straight up, in what you think. Or, to see the right winger go early was a shock in the drop. To see Senek go that early on the right wing selection. I mean, that's like a specialty pick.
Striatic talking himself out of his comment earlier says, wait, what am I saying? Just take Booyum.
Exactly. I've done it too, Striatic. Trust me. There's only one other guy I'd want in that group that I'm glancing in the top 15 that would fall in there, but I'm ready to go with Boyum. If not, I'll drop to Eiserman. What the hell?
Okay, a couple more thoughts on that Beniers extension. This one from Derek as well. Here's what he had to say. We were talking to Matty Beniers, the extension. What you think? Let me know in the chat if you haven't already. But here's Derek's opinion on that matter.
I think this should absolutely be within the next month. It should most likely be a bridge deal. I'm not too familiar with the numbers here or like comparisons, but I would be happy with anything at or under 5 million per year. And that's basically just because he hasn't shown that he can produce as an everyday experienced NHLer yet. He did win the Calder, but last year was a major regression. And so we need to see more, in my opinion. He doesn't have much leverage because of that. And I hope to see a roughly 3-year, roughly $4.5 million a year deal for him. And that's really for him to bet on himself and prove himself as a star. And I think he'll do that.
Thanks, Derek. So weighing in, also thinking it's going to be a bridge deal. So I think that's kind of general consensus. I don't know if that's the way Matty Beniers and his camp is going to want to go, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's how Francis wants to negotiate. And speaking of Francis, he's on the stage right now. The Seattle Kraken pick is in. Big moment for the Kraken, entering their 4th year as a franchise, and really could go a couple directions here. Interesting to see what's going to happen. And speaking of Matty Beniers, look who's coming out to make the pick for the Kraken on the stage, shaking Mr. Bettman's hand. Matthew Beniers making the Kraken selection at pick number 8 in the 2024 NHL Draft. And there you go. Pick is in. Kraken select Berkeley Catton out of Spokane. Initial reaction, Jim. I think you might have your mute on, so let's get your initial reaction.
I'm fine.
There we
I
go.
had him mentioned out of 3 names going back to the 3rd pick, so he's in there. I mean, I just happen to be gravitating towards Boyum. I'm fine. He wants forwards. He wants scoring. He doesn't care if it's 2 or 3 years from now. Ronnie wants scoring. You know, if he wants D, he'll probably do it through the FA market, no matter what. Correct?
Definitely could go that route.
And if you want defensive defensemen, they tend to go in later rounds. So everything's cool.
Yeah,
So
sometimes people will reach, or teams will reach a little early for defensive defensemen. And it takes time. Defensemen really take a lot of time to develop. You know, so you could be looking at 3, 4, some years out until they get into their mid to late 20s. Sometimes you don't see defensemen hit their peak in the NHL. So I'm a little surprised, but hey, I like it. Like you said, scoring is needed. And I think Mr. Catton can do that quite a bit from what I've seen.
His last ranking was number 8, so he's right on target.
2023.
Another reason to go watch WHL hockey when he comes to town, which is much easier since we play them more.
Very true.
I mean, 116 points last year, 54 dingers in 68 games, 62 points. What do you want? I mean, this kid, he's a sniper, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he's on his trajectory is absolutely fine. A little small, 5'11", 170. But you know what? He can put the puck in the net.
Striatic says, sigh, Boyum denied. Buoy or Boyum. Yeah, the name with Buoy would have been kind of fun there, but
it would have.
Did not happen. That's okay. I think, like Jim said, I think this is a quality player, scorer, little smaller frame. Definitely in the Kraken wheelhouse for the type of player that they've drafted so far. Yager Fergus comes to mind. We're going to talk about him a little bit later in the stream here. One of the questions I've asked some of the community is, who do you think is going to be the next breakout player for the Kraken? So maybe respond to that in the chat as we continue to talk about the Beniers extension that's coming here. But yeah, Shane Wright obviously is next, but I'm thinking after Shane, who's going to be the person making the jump to the big club after Shane Wright? So kind of think about that a little bit. Let me know in the chat what you're thinking. A couple more videos here, Jim. The last one was from Derek weighing in on the Beniers extension. Heather and Will both weighed in on that. So let's watch Heather's response, see what she's thinking. Consensus so far has been kind of 3-year deal, bridge deal. But here's what Heather had to say.
Hey Sasquatch and friends, Heather Moonka here. Thanks so much for letting me hop on and share some thoughts around what's coming up for the Kraken. First,
I may have already played
sort
this.
of topic I want to talk about is Matty Beniers. So we know that he's up for an extension and we all love Matty, and I know that he's going to stick around for a while, but he did have a sophomore slump, and not that he's a bad player. I mean, he's an excellent player, and he did a lot of things that I think maybe didn't show on the stat sheets necessarily. So I still think he's a valuable member of the team and should absolutely be extended. But before the season, I almost was leaning towards that long-term extension, like 8x8, and I sort of have totally rolled that back just because of the production. And, you know, the season wasn't super great for anyone. But I think now we're looking more at somewhat of a bridge deal for him. And I do think, I don't know, hard to say, but maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years if we're really being generous here. And I think probably around that 4 million mark. Like, I do think that's a really solid plan for him. It also allows him to really, you know, take this summer, and I think he has a lot to look at and a lot to work on and a lot to improve on, and really show up next season and prove that he's worth that. Maybe good that we kind of had this slump for him and we can re-sign him and extend now before he kind of breaks out, because I do think he has that potential to do that. So that's what I'm feeling on Matty. I'm excited to see what it is, whatever it is, because I do think he is definitely a core piece of the team moving forward.
That was Heather. I apologize if I played that twice. I just got out of order there. But a little more about Berkeley Catton as well. This is from allaboutthejersey.com. Catton last season just exploded. 68 games, 54 goals, 116 total points in the WHL. So that ranked him third in the league with 54 goals. Just incredible scoring ability. So I think that's very exciting. The WHL is, you know, it's great hockey to watch there. I'd be very interested to see how he develops, you know, as he progresses now probably into the AHL at some point. But yeah, I feel like goal scoring is the priority, and that's what you're going to get with this type of a player. So it makes total sense to me. And like Jim, you said, you know, maybe if we need to shore up our defense, maybe you explore that in free agency, or maybe you wait for a later round pick in that department. But yeah, overall, our defense really wasn't too bad last year. We just didn't score enough goals.
Yeah, in all our cats, it was actually our best category. And when you lay it against everything else, I mean, it wasn't sparkling, but it was 15. It was mid-pack. It wasn't really a concern in a bad season, technically. We had all kinds of, you know, PK. We didn't have any tending issues. That was top level. Our 5-on-5 was brutal. You know, and I realize, you know, just because what you're seeing drafted today has nothing to do with like it's immediate next year, but they're thinking no matter what, with what's going on, that they can get by. They'll probably got some FA situations going here where they want to pick up a 3-4D or something in the future, whether it's a defensive defenseman or something. I'm not worried about it. We can, you know, 2 and 3, some of the best players in the world have been picked in round 2 and 3. So, you know,
Yeah.
this is the only thing that puzzles me is, like, you know, we wanted Boyum, some of us like me and Stratic or whatever, but we just not got to drop that attitude. It doesn't matter. Catton's is a fine pick. I just, whenever I see a pick like that, I always think like, oh, so our scouts at least are thinking that he's going to be more of an impact player than, say, a Cole Eiserman, who's been getting touted heavily for the last, you know, 18 months. So that always kind of surprises me when that happens.
Yeah. So at 9 there, Calgary's pick came in. It was Zane Parekh, another name that we had kind of been interested a little bit for the Kraken, but
A little bit
Yeah,
of a
Catton
drop.
comes at 8 for the Kraken, Perek at 9 for the Calgary Flames, and I think both of those are right in the wheelhouse of where they were projected. Catton 6 at the lowest I've seen, 14 by Craig Button, maybe at the highest, or flip those words, highest, lowest, depending on which way you look at that scale. But any thoughts on Zane Perek going to the Calgary Flames?
I liked when I was doing my pre-studies. I liked that kid. They said he's a lot like a Roman Yossi type of player, so he's obviously on the O side of things. Good heady player. He won a Memorial Cup with Saginaw just recently. You can't go wrong. He was projected here on the last count at 6, 5 or 6. So they got him a little later than projected, kind of. So it's a good pick. He was a second ranked D.
So a pretty good pick
Somebody's
there for
got-
Calgary, and then you got the Devils on
think
the
so.
board next.
What do they
One
need?
more
What are the Devils?
clip here as we were talking about the Matty Beniers extension. This one is from Will Harrison, and then after that, we're going to talk about a couple other things, a couple other questions. We're going to do this throughout the show, and be sure to weigh in the chat as we go. Just talking about the Matthew Beniers extension. Here's Will's thoughts on how he thinks that will go down.
Well, as far as Maddie is concerned, April and I both agree. I think both sides, Maddie and the team both, don't want to do anything more than a bridge deal at this point. Maddie hasn't done enough to earn the top tier contract that I'm sure he wants. And the team, has got to be wondering, okay, what is Maddie's ceiling? So any kind of a long-term deal at this point would really be kind of premature. So I'm thinking, bridge deal, 3 years, something between $4 and $5 million a year would probably suffice, and then hopefully by the time that deal expires, he'll be ready. He'll have earned a really big contract. Yes. Say hi. You ready for your close up?
That was Will Harrison and Will's cat April weighing in on the Matty Beniers contract extension, which we're expecting to happen here soon. We got the New Jersey Devils on the clock. Jim, what are you thinking? What's going to happen here over the next few picks? I know we've been a little bit surprised maybe through the first 5 picks, and so far 6 through 9 about in line with projections. Some thought maybe the Devils would trade out of this, but I don't know. What's on your mind as we go into this pick?
Well, I didn't do any pre-study on their needs. I know that. But they've got the O. I think they need to work on the D with that other young D. So they could I would either grab Boyum or Yzerman here.
Yeah.
I would, or even Dickinson. I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff right here. It's up to the 15th pick. It's pretty good stuff. So I don't know. Let's see here.
Sharks are going to pick again right after the Devils. And I believe they traded into that spot.
Is that Brodeur? Is that Brodeur on the far left, right there?
Let's see. In the glasses, yeah, he's talking now. Oh, clean shaven. Good old Marty.
I saw his very first game.
No kidding.
Well, on TV, but a lot of people probably didn't.
So there's the pick. It's in for the Devils.
Him too.
Anton Salayev goes at pick number 10. Salayev out of Novgorod KHL. Big defenseman. We're talking tower. 6'7", 211 pounds. Tsar of Russia. Wow, this kid is big.
5th ranked D. Oops, he almost fell. You see that? This is like a Zdeno Chara thing almost. That's like, go grab the biggest one you can. Maybe he ranks a C on skating. We can change that over 5 years, and before you know it, he'll be here. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're not
like we would have said. Yeah,
I was just saying you're not going to get a lot of scoring out of him, but he's definitely going to knock some people around and hopefully move the puck well. But go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh no, you did. I just know that like when I watched Zdeno play a little bit of junior, and he was an awkward skater for the longest time, but they just said, "Go get him, we'll work with him," type of deal. And that sometimes they do that.
Yeah. For those watching, new or return viewers here on the channel, the poll question today was, what positional player do you think the Kraken will draft at spot number 8? Well, you were mostly all wrong. 65% said a defenseman, 35% said a forward. So Heather is in
Hi.
the Zoom room. What's up,
Sorry, I
Heather?
just hopped on like randomly.
No,
But
that's the
okay.
whole point. Great to have you. What's
Hi.
going on? What's going through your mind after that Kraken pick at number 8?
I think Derek might be on his way too, but we lots of differing emotions. Like, obviously a great player that we just picked, but at the same time, like, there were so many amazing defensemen on the board that I am just shocked we didn't pick one, especially so many offensive defensemen that just I don't know. It's like I feel like our prospect pool has been so forward heavy that having a defenseman would have been really nice, but
Yeah, I
Derek's
think
in
we're all
shambles,
shocked.
so you can ask him.
Derek's here too. What's up, Derek? I was just playing some of your guys' clips. I actually played one of Heather's twice. I didn't really mean to, but so you got extra airtime, Heather.
Yes.
Awesome.
But got the
Glad
whole
it was
collective here.
worth me doing.
Real quick too, guys. You just launched your YouTube channel. You were doing the PSF broadcast last season, so maybe just plug your new stuff real quick, and then we could talk Kraken and draft and all that great stuff. So Heather,
Yeah,
go ahead.
We just launched. So our collective name is Beneath the Waves. So you can find us at BTWSEA all over every channel, YouTube, Insta, TikTok, all the places. And we are just really working on. We have this great group of 5 people that we've been working with since about February, and it's been a really fun time. Just a good collaboration with a lot of different voices and opinions. So we're just branching out to have more reach and hopefully, I don't know, we go off the rails sometimes. It's a lot of fun, but we have good content too. So
I mean, it's always good to go off the rails.
You have
Staying
to.
on the rails all the time is boring. Derek,
Yeah,
we need
and-
your
Oh my.
immediate reaction to the Kraken pick at 8,
Oh
even though
my
it's been a few minutes
goodness.
ago. Let's hear it.
I was flabbergasted. I was absolutely stunned. I was slumped over in disappointment. Being a defenseman myself and just understanding the value of offensive defensemen, I just thought with all of the good offensive defensemen besides maybe Yakimchuk still there, that we would pull the trigger on one of those. I think they're the most valuable players in the league. And I think it was a rare opportunity to get a guy like Zeev Buim, who I was really high on. And I was just telling our Beneath the Waves crew last couple of days, I've just been watching a bunch of highlights of all the offensive defensemen, and now it's disappointing not to see any of them on our team. But I'm gonna get refreshed with Catton, and hopefully he's pretty good. His numbers look pretty good, so I'm not super upset.
A good player.
Yeah, and you weren't alone in this, Derek. There was lots of comments in the chat. A few people that I've talked to behind the scenes felt the same way. Offensive defenseman. If Buium was there, maybe they'd take him. Jim kind of was back and forth on this a little bit, but yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise seeing Berkeley Catton go at 8. But the kid can score some goals and motor around pretty good. He's done well for the Spokane Chiefs. So Striatic was in full agreement with Heather commenting here on what you were just talking about. So and Striatic was a big all in on Buium, and that pick was not what happened.
Yep.
So I don't know. Disappointment's a weird feeling when you have your sights set on a certain player or prospect, and then it kind of goes a different direction. But it's a different type of excitement for maybe what Berkeley Catton can bring to the table in time. But
yeah,
we're going forward. We got another pick. This one for the Sharks. Jim, maybe you want to talk about Sam Dickinson a little bit. He is now a San Jose Shark.
another one.
Yeah. Yeah. 5 ranked D, so he's the 5th ranked D. There they go. It's kind of a shakeup after the first 4 picks for sure. I did say I wanted a forward. I'm that weird guy because I guess it's because I'm a forward, Derek. I don't know. But I do know there was a ton of offensive talent D on here. I get it. I mean, I had Boehm in there too. But we'll see here. Obviously, the scouts and what's going on with Ronnie and the team, and Bilesman's new system, well, which won't be much different, but his new take over here. They sat down, they talked about this, and I don't know how much late uh, talking they did on at the table here, because there was still, no matter what, there's still plenty of good stuff here in the top 20, right?
Yeah.
They went with a guy that's really turned it up and sniped, and we know that last year was a sucky year for offensive production. And I think it's not going to happen in 2 years either. But I think, like I told Mikey, I says, if they want to get their D, maybe in better shape, they'll do it through the FA market. They'll do it in trades, what have you. And, I don't know. Are guys like Adam Larson going to be around in 2 years? Are guys, are defensive defensemen, are those kind of guys going to be here? We might have to go that route and look at defensive defensemen. But you're right. I mean, Coachella's a little bit light in D. I just think that they'll, in the mid rounds, they're going to start concentrating on the D that they think might work in their system. I don't know. That's the only explanation I have. Because there's a lot of good stuff on this board, but there's a lot of good snipers too.
Yeah.
So is that like how Catton profiles? Like he's not really two-way. He's just more of like a scorer.
Yeah, he's a snipe. I mean, I haven't followed him that much, but I did have him down as one of the 3 forwards in the top 15 for sure. I was leaning a little more towards Cole Eiserman, but he didn't rank as high as well. So they're seeing something out of him on quick progression, probably similar to Furcus in a way. And I don't know. Ronnie's got a plan, and his team has a plan, and I don't know if they had to do any late, chatting at that table to say, well, you want, that type of stuff. Or if he was actually targeted at 8, and that's where he sat at 8 on the final elite prospect rankings. So that's 15 scouts talking to each other.
It's true. Yeah. I apologize. I'm actually going to the Mariners game, so I wanted to just hop on and say hello and goodbye. But I appreciate you so much having me on and letting me share clips, and hopefully they were good even twice if you share. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for just inviting me on. I appreciate it. And I wish I could stay longer, but I'm going to go sit in the little bit of sun we have today.
Yeah, get out there. Go touch some grass. Enjoy it.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. And we'll play your other clips later as well. So thanks for joining. Enjoy the Mariners. Hopefully they win. It can be frustrating to watch sometimes. But yeah, I think, like I said, a few others out at the Mariners game today. Really nice weather to take it all in. But yeah, I was just going to comment before Heather took off there. I feel like the Kraken, they're going to go through this. You're always going to try to balance the equation, right? Right now, the equation is out of whack as far as scoring goals goes. And so maybe that also is indicative of how aggressive they're going to be with bringing guys up from Coachella Valley or moving players around. So you do got to restock that forward cupboard as well as guys come up to the big club. So, obviously Shane Wright, we're talking about being kind of the next breakout player for the Kraken. Derek, we recorded some clips for this as well, some commentary. I'll just take yours live this time, but who's coming next after Shane Wright for the Kraken, in your opinion?
Oh, I said this in the clip, but I think it absolutely has to be Furcus with the amount of points that he produced last year. I think it was 126 in 62 games or something like that. Just unreal numbers in the WHL. And I don't know if you've ever done the NHL calculator. I just did that today for the first time, but apparently it equals about 40 or 50 points in the NHL. They try to make the equivalent from the league with the games played in points metrics. Mm-hmm. So I think it 100% has to be Furcus. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Jim.
This is interesting because whenever you see the everybody put their top 10 in order, who they think on the prospects, there's a little bit of variation, but a lot of the top three are the same. I obviously like Ferguson. I know what he can do, and he's a dazzling offensive gifted kid. I will say this, when I've watched him in camp, in dev and then regular camp, I was dazzled his first year, and the second year I noticed they were putting a little more heat on him. And I noticed, and then when he had the didn't he get a little practice time in scrimmage in the Calgary game in preseason?
He did.
Yep.
Yes. And I know it's minimal minutes. I get it. But I noticed that, he's a smaller guy. We know that he has to build on his size. I don't know how much bigger he can get. I just noticed when he's in traffic and time and space, the magician we know doesn't quite have that tool. And I noticed that a little bit in camp last year. And I thought, okay, well, he's maybe even a couple years out, even with those incredible numbers. So I don't know where to put him is the thing. He could go as high as say 3, 2, but he could even bump down farther just because of what I just mentioned. But the guys that I tend to all of a sudden reach to are guys like Carson Rakoff. That guy has an NHL shot right now, and he's got pretty good size. He reminds me of a healthy Burakovsky, let's just say, in a way. He plays the board work the same way coming down the wing, and but that shot he's got. That's why I said that. Okay.
Sorry, that was a bad joke.
His stock, ever since he's been drafted, in my opinion, has just gone poof. But it's weird because you don't hear that many people talking about him. I know John over at Sound is into him too as well. We've had little sidebars on that. So I have him pretty high. And then Yanni Neiman, he's surprising me because his game, his international game, has translated to North American style much better than most of them do. Pretty quick. And I think he's got some potential. But you've got all these other guys underneath there that we all know about. And I feel like they should be up there, but I still have these guys right there, man. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so I'll just weigh in on this as well real quick. And Stratic says he has to go. So thanks for streaming. Thanks for being here, Stratic. I appreciate it. And as always, great to have you. We're going to have you back on the channel as well. Stratic, always great insight. But just so kind of my take on this, I think for me, there's two categories. There's who we're gonna see more of next, and who might potentially break out next. And for me, there's a clear formula that Ron Francis and the organization have put in place. It's first of all, spend time at the AHL level. Second of all, then you start to get your chances. Maybe there's injuries, you fill in, you get your shot. So in that category, I really think Ryan Winterton's going to be the guy cycling up, and maybe he breaks out. Maybe he has that success at the next level. I'm not convinced that's going to be, the glamour and glitz that we're hoping for Jágr Furcus, right? So I think categorically there's two areas there. I don't think you're going to see Furcus as much until he gets a little more seasoning at the AHL level, but I think he has the higher ceiling, the higher potential for being that glitz and glamour, that breakout. But yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. You can't see what's going to happen until they get their shot in the lineup, and spots are at a premium. There's going to be a lot of competition in camp this fall. Shane Wright, obviously, we've all got him penciled in, and we'll see how that goes. But that's just kind of my thinking going into it. Maybe that's a wishy-washy answer a little bit, but I really think you're going to see more of Ryan Winterton first, and then hopefully Fergus can be that breakout star and scorer that we want at the NHL level. So I got to update us real quick on picks. So I got a little bit behind, right? We got Philly was on the clock. Actually, we've got a trade. Flyers trade their 12th pick to the Minnesota Wild. So that's kind of what happened there. So I'm not behind.
No.
I thought I was behind, but now Minnesota is on the clock, and that's why Philly ran it down all the way.
And Mike, with your answer, all three of us gave 3 different answers, which is a good place to be in, right? Yeah. We're looking at it differently. I mean, we all brought up good points about how we came to that, and that's one thing. Our prospect pool was pretty darn solid. It was, what was it, a B+ or an A- ranking in the second year draft, but we've got enough capital now. This is another thing why maybe we picked Berkeley here to there might be some package trades down the road with some of the prospects that are getting talked to from other clubs already. You're Robertsons, you're this, you're that. We've got a lot of guys that might have been on their draft interest and got away, and now we can use them on the board somewhere, not here, but anywhere in the immediate future on a deal. And that's huge. So they might be 3 steps ahead of what we're watching. Who knows?
Very true.
And Winterton was on my list too, but I only gave 2 names because I can get carried away here. And I just like how we all came up with different answers, period. It's a good spot to be in.
Well, and hopefully the front office is getting a variety of, scenarios and opinions. And I think that's the way they've kind of handled things overall. And that's
Right.
the way that group works. So I don't know. I've got a lot of faith in the front office in place. I think that the coaching change did surprise me just a little bit because I thought if that was going to happen, it would happen a little bit sooner in the season. So, it wasn't 100% surprising, but I thought they might roll with Hackstall going into the fall, and that was not the case after some of the interviews and things like that took place, and just the assessment overall in the front office. We're not going to ever know everything that went down, but I think that what it does show you is that they sit down, they review, they collectively analyze, and then they make decisions. And even if it's a tough decision that, it didn't seem like Francis really wanted to part ways with Hackstall at that point, but I think maybe it was for the best, and now we've kind of got a turn in the page in the book for the Kraken. 4th season coming up, a change of the guard a little bit, as well as maybe some of the players that we saw early in the Kraken franchise, staples, if you will, such as Brandon Tanev, we're also going to talk about, possibly getting towards the end of their tenure as Kraken players. So I don't know. Maybe if you want to talk about that a little bit, Derek, as far as some of the mainstays, the icons that we've had in the Kraken roster, how that might change here over the next 6 months or so.
Well, I think it really depends. Like Jim was saying, with the picks that we can combine to make better deals in the future, I think it really depends on if you believe that the core that we have right now is worth investing in, like if it's salvageable, or if we need to move on from it in the future. So the coaching change to me suggests that Ron thinks that the core is salvageable, and that with new leadership, with new structure, you can take these same guys, like largely the same core, and come up with a different result. Similarly to how we saw in 2022 with the offensive production, and then it curtailing off in 2023. I think Hackstall's systems generally, I'm not a huge systems expert or anything, but I think his systems generally were weak to be adapted. I think he largely did the same thing, wishing for different results, if that makes sense, with like the mid-range shots, the point shots, things like that. Another one besides Tanev I could see moving, Alex Kraken Canada talks about this too, is potentially Yanni Gord. That might be another one that might be moved. Other than that, I'm not too sure. But yeah, I think this core is worth investing in. I think with the coaching change, we can ramp up the offense again. I think if we trade for like maybe one offensive piece, like potentially line A or something, I think that would be good. And I think Jim made a good point about including some of these picks to do that.
And as Derek was talking there, the pick for Minnesota came in, the player we've been talking quite a bit about, Zeev Buium, to the Wild.
And they traded, and they knew what they wanted.
They traded up with Philadelphia, swapped places basically, and snagged him. So 11th pick goes to Sharks Dickinson, 12th pick to Minnesota.
Okay.
Buium.
No, I'm with you. It was. He went later than I thought. We all thought. Interesting.
Yeah, I think most people had Buium in the top 10, if not the top 8.
For sure.
No, yeah. I saw him at like 6, even some 5, like insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Flyers again on the clock. Thanks for that response too, Derek. I think that's, when you break the stuff down, there's a lot of different ways they can go, and it's good to get all the different opinions and consideration here. But let's talk about a few other questions. I think we've talked about the Beniers extension. I did play your clip on that one, Derek, and you brought up Line A, so maybe that's kind of the next topic here for the Kraken. Martin Necas, Patrick Line A. There's been a few rumors going around. Maybe Line would be a scoop for the Kraken, acquire him depending on how things go there. I've seen quite a few teams in the mix for that name. Martin Necas might be a little more expensive as far as if you're going to make an acquisition there, but we'll start with you, Derek. What would you prefer? A Martin Necas acquisition, Patrick Laine, maybe none of the above? And do you think that a player like that will be enough to kind of bolster scoring when it was such a big issue for the Kraken last season?
So I think they're similar in terms of offensive production. That might be a very unpopular opinion. But I think a lot of people, in my opinion, disrespect Laine because of the time that he missed due to injury, which I largely think is kind of out of his control. I think injuries are kind of random. Some players are like actually injury prone. I don't know too much about the specifics of his injuries. I know a lot of them were upper body though. But Patrick Laine in his like goals for per 60 minutes of play, when you actually break it down into per 60 stats, he's always been top 50 in the league. So out of like 400 plus forwards a year, I think that's pretty insane, especially considering that his value is going to be lower due to the injury stuff. But I think as like an analytical person in the Kraken front office, you can see when he's played, he's been insane. So I think personally, I would want Columbus to retain about 3 mil in cap space is what I would set like the hard line to if I were the Kraken. But I would definitely go with Laine. And I think it moves the needle a little bit. I don't think it would like completely change everything in our offense, but I think you need to do everything right now you can to get us from like bottom 4 in offensive production up to like league average, because our defense is really good. Just get us to like league average offense and we'll be good.
Jim, if you want to kind of
Okay,
that and
I'll try to get in here quick, but I also want to get back on the Tanev thing. So
yeah.
You kind of know where I've stood on that. I mean, he's 3.5 on the cap. That's a lot. He's perennial third line, sometimes slash fourth line, sometimes second line. The guy plays with heart. He's a character guy. We love him. But you know, the reality is, when he first came here and he started producing, everybody fell in love with him. That wasn't his typical game. He was like a lot of the players on the Kraken, getting lucky, and some guys have breakouts. The injury
he typically
status,
doesn't score that
stuff.
many goals, right?
No, I've been known to call him hands Tanev because nobody gets more breakaways and just can't do anything, rolls off the end of his stick. That's just me. Look, I bought his or his road jersey the day it came out. That's what I like about the guy, because I knew he'd be a character guy. But sometimes you just got to let things go, and I'm fine with that. No big. I've been in that state for a year, to be honest with you. And also, Derek, like you said, you know, there's other players as well that their time was up or could be coming up, and it's all good trade value for the most part. I don't know if Tanev is as much, but Gord, yes. And it's he's probably the number 2 character guy in the club. So you could see some stuff happening. There's not going to make people happy, but overall you're freeing up a lot of money and time to move on and concentrate on building your top 6 with talent, and then constantly rotating your bottom 6 on the FA, UFA, all that stuff like you do. That's how you manage the club. Okay. So as far as, let me see, we got Necas and Laine. So Necas is going to cost money, which is unfortunate because that's the pick I would want, because he's a great all-around player, and his ceiling is still like this. Laine, I know he can snipe. We all know he can snipe. He can even snipe in his own goal. But the injury thing really concerns me, number one. And he's got a reputation on the defensive side of the puck that I don't know if it'll ever change through, makeup or wherever he goes. What are you pointing at?
Sorry for the comment. Derek can only take so much heartbreak in one night.
I'm sorry, Derek. No,
Shout out BTW.
The guy can snipe. We know that. And a PP specialist, all that stuff. And I know he's in a tough place in his career right now, with the post injury. Yeah. It's going to be a fight back. And that's going to be what holds a lot of teams from even being interested in him versus, taking him at a value. Who knows? I'm willing to. I don't even think Necas can fit on our number board. And if we are spending that kind of money, I think we should even go above that with, a 3-year older player than that. This actually has a resume that is outstanding. And then I've got guys down here that are mid players, midline, third line, and up, and they range in older vets, 32, 33 years old, and then down a little bit in age. And I got guys like all over the place. Some of them are a little high value, some of them aren't. You got Bertuzzi, you got Tolvanen, you got Gensel, you got Reinhardt, you got Jonathan Marchessault would be a great leader on this team at value.
Yeah.
That guy scores more big goals than anybody in the league, and you could get him for a value.
I'm a huge fan of his, by the way.
I am too. I am too. And you got Toffoli, he's getting up in age, but that guy can put the puck in the net, for crying out loud. You got DeBrusk, and I'm a Boston guy, and I've been all over his career from day one about his streaky play, his kind of lazy play at times, but you know what? He's young, and he can put the big puck on the stick and get the big goal. So those are the kind of names that flow through my head.
Yeah, and we'll continue to talk about this. Philadelphia's pick is in here at 13, Jet Luchenko, and
that's off the board, kind of.
Yeah, a little early. I think I saw his name kind of pop up in the 18 to 32 range, maybe 20 to 32 range, but yeah, it's a fun name to say. Jet Luchenko, 74 points in the OHL there. So, this kid can score center. He's got a great handle on the puck and moves the puck really well. So Philadelphia, obviously they weren't after Buyum because they traded out of that spot, trade back and get Jet Luchenko. But weigh in the chat if you guys have comments on each of these picks. We're not just Kraken fans, we're hockey fans, and we love to hear from everybody as we go. If you haven't, hit that like button for me if you're enjoying the stream today. And subscribe to the new Beneath the Waves crew over on YouTube as well. Shout out to Derek. Heather joined in today. We've got a couple clips from Heather. Alicia joined in, so big thanks to everybody that contributed. Will also weighed in. Let's hear Will's take on the Brandon Tanev situation, guys, as we go into the next portion of the draft here. We're almost halfway through the first round, but here's Will's thoughts on Brandon Tanev maybe being traded away from the Kraken.
Now, I love Brandon Tanev. I mean, that guy was my first favorite Kraken player, first jersey. Just watching him zip around in warm-ups with his helmet off is always a treat. And I think he's going to get moved this offseason, and I think it's the right call. I hate to say it, but he was not very productive this past year, even after he made it back from the injury. Moving him frees up both a roster spot and about $3.5 million in cap space. And, we have guys like Ty Cartier who can do what Turbo does cheaper. Given the need to bring in some more assets this year, we need spots and we need cap space. I think if we can move Tanev, I think we need to do it. I hate to say it, but I think we need to do it.
So, and I think, everybody kind of has that same sentiment that it's going to be tough to say goodbye to a player of that type. Now, one thing I would kind of throw out there, though, it's harder to trade a player that's coming off maybe not a great year. So we all just assume we can move a player. Maybe there's no takers, and then, what do you do? But Heather also weighed in, going to play that one as well real quick here for Brandon Tanev possibly departing.
Okay. Deep breath for this one. How do we feel about trading for Brandon Tanev? Well, I've had a little bit of time to ponder this, but first thing that I have to say is that he's really my first hockey player that I ever clicked with, and that's of any hockey player because the Kraken's really my first, not really, it is my first team that I've followed in the NHL, and so he was the first one that I just saw on the ice, and I'm like, yeah, that's freaking cool. We love his speed. We love his zoomies. We love him on the penalty kill. We love that he, brings a different level when he's on the ice. We know he doesn't quit. We love Brandon Tanev. But he does play on the fourth line and is paid quite a bit to do that. And I think from a business standpoint, it does make sense to potentially trade him and get some cap space. I'm not happy about that. Trust me, I will be absolutely gutted on a personal level, and I will be talking about that a lot and sharing my feelings, and I will be upset. But I do get it from a business standpoint. I just will be really very sad for that, because he's just been an amazing player for the team, and for me personally to like just be able to watch and see, and it's my first jersey I ever got, so I'll be sad, but I guess I get it.
Yeah, so I don't know. And I think that just kind of reillustrates the other side, the other perspective of this, and we'll continue on to a couple other questions and thoughts as we go through the first round here. Buffalo about to make their pick as well, but Heather kind of pointed it out. Like he's pretty much a fourth line player at this point, and I don't know if the contract matches the production. So the other perspective, maybe a team out there needs some leadership, or some grit, or some speed and intensity and forecheck. Not necessarily looking for the scoring ability, but maybe it's something where the Kraken have to retain a little bit to move Tanev, but he ends up on a team in a leadership role and helps maybe a team that's rebuilding or has some cap space. I don't know, Jim. Maybe like a Sharks team or a Chicago team or somewhere where they are trying to build it out, but they need that experience factor. But the contract is a little bit limiting, right?
Yeah. So no matter what, you're going to take a loss on this. It's just going to happen. And he's at the downside of his career. But there's going to be teams out there, probably bottom half for the most part, who knows though, that want a specialist. He's a PK specialist. Okay. Whether he's PK1, PK2, somebody might just reach for him on that alone, or the checking line capacity and third line capacity that's always been, and or fourth line energy line. So it's not dead in the water as far as he goes. The only problem about him is they'll look at the injury history and things like that. But yeah, it's going to be a loss. But whatever frees up 3.5, frees it up, and you're good to go. And
so Derek, Buffalo,
we all hate this.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to throw to Derek here. Consta Hellenius Finnish player, went to Buffalo there at pick 14. I kind of thought he'd end up with Detroit. Just has like that Detroit-looking name.
Right.
But he's a Sabre.
True. You could definitely see that on the back of a Wings jersey.
And he will be on our show for pronunciation of all Finnish players.
Right. So Derek, we came up with an idea here. We're gonna do, I do trivia and stuff sometimes, but we're gonna do a hockey name spelling bee. So yeah,
that's awesome.
That'll be entertaining. I don't know when. That. It's just an idea. Probably will never actually happen. And just
I'm gonna study up just in case.
Oh God.
So Consta Hellenius, a great Finnish player coming out of LGE professional league over there. Most points by an under 18 player in Finland. So definitely can put the puck in the net. Great handle as well. And you see some of these names maybe a little sooner than expected. That feels like the theme today. Although it was pretty unpredictable, I think, outside of the top few players. And even there, Seneca up at 3 to Anaheim, I thought was kind of surprising. I thought Demidov was going to go second or third. Levshinov, just based on the projections that I did my homework on. But, I don't know these players inside out. I'm not prospect expert, but it is kind of fun to watch the unpredictable nature of how the draft has gone so far.
I just made myself sad again by looking at your draft board and seeing that Catton was surrounded by 5 defensemen that I was looking at. Besides Silyev, I didn't want Silyev, but the 4 there.
Yeah.
Derek, I will buy your ticket to see the T-Birds versus the Spokane Chiefs this year.
Thank you. I'm a huge T-Birds fan.
Let's go.
Spokane road trip.
We'll sit next to each other and we'll scout. How's that?
Yep. T-Birds is the best team in the WHL.
Yep.
Okay.
By the way, the name it. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, next topic we were going to talk about was we alluded to it a little bit. Patrick Laine and Martin Necas. You both got to weigh in on that. I wanted to play all the clips that were submitted for that as well. The last one was from Will. he weighed in on the Line A Natchez situation and possible rumors for one of those players coming to the Kraken. Here's what Will had to say.
Okay, so if it was a question just straight up, who do you prefer, Line A or Natchez, I would take Marty Natchez, no question, considering what that Line A's been through. But, you know, all things aren't equal. I think we could get Line A for a lot less than we would Natchez. I mean, what the Hurricanes want for Natchez is, you know, we're going to surrender some key prospects, probably one of our mid-six forwards. You know, it's a high price to pay for somebody who has been a pretty good player, hasn't really taken that next step, and I don't know. You're really gambling on upside there. You know, not that Line A isn't a gamble with his injury history and everything else that have gone on, but he's only 26, and you've got his shot is just pretty incredible if he can stay healthy, and if he settles in and this is a better fit for him. You know, 2 years and an extension, and he's still young. More of a gamble, maybe, but he's going to cost a lot less. I would take Line A over Natchez.
So Will kind of weaving back and forth there, but more of a Line A fan than Natchez. And neither of these things may come to fruition, but it's kind of fun to think about what might be a good pick or a good fit for the Kraken. Ty Jacobs is not a Thunderbirds fan. T-Birds puke with the laugh emoji there. Well, Ty's a Portland Winterhawks guy, so, you know.
That's the worst team.
Yeah. Nobody likes the Winterhawks except
Yeah.
for Ty. Well, I mean, there's a few people, not to offend anybody, but
Portland cheats, though.
Ty definitely took in some Chiefs games back in the day. I know he's a Spokane boy, so and I did as well. I'm not from Spokane, but I lived in that area for quite a while on the east side of the state. So yeah, I actually got to watch back when Mike Babcock was the coach for the Chiefs, believe it or not, way back when. So yeah, some good teams have come through the WHL pipeline there in Spokane. Ty Jacobs, I live here. Well, yeah, in the Portland metro. So yeah, why not? May as well cheer.
Guy.
Yeah. All right, pick is in for the Detroit Red Wings. They're announcing it right now. Stevie Y on the stage. And this will be the 15th pick in the 2024 draft. Nicholas Lidstrom, Hockey Hall of Famer, incredible player as well, making the selection. And there it is. Michael Branzig Nygård, Swedish player, right wing. And I actually got to see the highlight package on this kid as well. He can move the puck. Good speed. Good handle. So that's pick 15 to the Detroit Red Wings. First Norwegian player ever drafted in the first round. So kind of cool. Jim, any or Derek, any thoughts?
No, but great pronunciation.
Yeah. Just having that A on the back of the jersey would be magnificent.
6'1", 207 pounds. So pretty good size for this kid at the wing position as well. 41 games last season, 8 goals, 10 assists. So the production wasn't as top off the chart as you might like, but I think good player, probably good fit for that Red Wings team. Are the Red Wings ever going to make the playoffs again, Jim?
Well, they were close, kind of. Again, it kind of surprised people. Remember, they surprised me, considering what was it, 23 or 24 runs consecutive.
You're testing me now.
The record one, I think it's 23 or 24, somewhere in there. So you would think like that it's just going to take a long time, and they kind of came up and tickled it, which surprised me. And I love their build. I love what they're doing there. So they're on track. And that's Stevie Y, obviously. And there's Lidstrom too. So, what a great franchise. Any way you look at it, they'll be
25
good.
consecutive seasons
Okay, I was off by one, maybe.
from 1990 to 2015.
I can remember, like, even in those tailing years when they were kept going, they were supposed to not be there, so they just kept going. But
Yeah,
that's
pretty incredible.
And that's draft, and that's everything. That's just, and then Stevie comes in and kind of saves them and brings them back. You know, remember there was even talk of Stevie. There was even talk of Stevie when Seattle first fired up. Remember that?
Yeah. All right, so we got. Oops, I need to update that pick, but St. Louis is on the clock. And they're interviewing Mr. Macklin Celebrini right now on the ESPN set. First pick overall to the San Jose Sharks. Sharks turning a page, kind of rebuilding. Gonna have a new look next year in the Pacific Division as they try to get back to where they were, 10 years or so ago, 8 years.
Yeah, but you got to be kind of
2016.
you got to be kind of excited over the last two drafts, Mike.
Yeah, and I think for me as a originally Sharks fan, now have taken on the Kraken obviously here in Seattle, but the Sharks for me, and I think a lot of Sharks fans went through this. It's tough when you've had those like institutional players for so long. That's all I remember and know was
Right.
Jumbo, Patty, Pavelski, even going all the way back to the 90s, Jeff Friesen and Teemu Selanne came through there, and et cetera, et cetera. And some of the goaltenders you've had, Artur Surbe, just on and on. And once they started making the playoffs, similar to the Red Wings, right? They just didn't stop making the playoffs, and they had those windows. I felt like 2016 was a tall task against that Pittsburgh Penguins team and Sidney Crosby. I feel like if they were going to get it done, it needed to come the year that they got eliminated by the Ducks, and then again the Kings in the reverse sweep. So those years were heartbreakers. But you see these players grow up, and Pavelski, great example. I watched him play his first NHL game. Was really rooting for him in Dallas to make it this year into the Cup and have a chance at it, but it just that heartbeat for those players and that time frame of the franchise, it's hard to kind of let that go and turn the page, and then all of a sudden you've got all these new guys, you don't know who they are. So in a way, it was very easy for me to kind of fall in love with the Kraken, because a lot of the guys that I loved for the Sharks had either started being moved or traded or retired. So it was kind of a good bookend for my Sharks fandom. But yeah, now we're building a little bit better here. Got the number one overall pick for the first time the Sharks did in their entire history, so that's cool. And I feel like Mike Greer,
wild.
He's got a great challenge ahead of him, and I think he's done a pretty good job navigating so far. But still, some years with contract issues to deal with. But yeah, you're going to see these young guys immediately make an impact for the Sharks. Eklund, they've got. I think they just moved Ferraro, but Couture, maybe he can get healthy again and make a difference. Maybe he gets moved. I'm not really sure what's going to happen there, but yeah, whole new look in San Jose, and it's exciting for that fan base as they kind of build back. All right, the Blues pick is in. And maybe the opposite end of that spectrum, Jim, is your Bruins, right? Are they going to be now kind of deciding whether they're going to rebuild, or, I mean, they still had a pretty good season. I know last year you said you were ready for full rebuild, but I don't think it's happening just yet.
The last 2 years, they were a bubble team on paper at best. And look what they did, right? So what's going on there? Okay. That's the franchise, apparently. And you know what? In the last 5 years, their pool ranking has been D material. So something's going right there. And all the fans want to get on Sweeney, want to get on Neely, want to get on whoever. But guess what? yeah, okay, maybe they don't perform in the playoffs like they should, but they're rolling through the regular season with a a bubble roster.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, they had no right that 2 years ago to break records like they did. They had no right doing that, and they did. Of course, having the number one tandem in the league surely didn't hurt. But
Right.
that's broken now, and it had to be. That was a no-brainer. That was going to happen. And we'll see. I don't know where they'll be. I still, no matter what, I'll call them a bubble team, and they'll probably outperform that. So, you know, but then come playoff time, they got beat by Florida, and Florida's a damn good team, obviously.
Yeah.
A well-built, well-rounded, physical, size, hand skill, tending. I could go on. That's how they won the cup, with all that. And Paul Maurice, incredible coach, he finally got his day. So good for them. And to be honest with you, my heart was nowhere in. When the weather comes around, I'm kind of checking out a bit because my hockey season's done. My team's out. So I just kind of, and then, it'll be on, but I walk by that tube kind of like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
but still, respect to Florida.
Carol's Dark Sarcasm, what's up? Good to have you on the stream. Says, how do we feel about Berkeley Catton? So I don't know, Derek, if you want to chit chat a little bit about what you thought the Kraken were going to do again, and then what they ended up doing, and we can break down Catton's numbers from the Chiefs a little bit too. But yeah, maybe just kind of go in review of your thought process and where we ended up.
Sounds good. I'll leave it to you for the numbers because I'm not super specific with Catton. Don't really know much. But to Carol's dark room, what was it? Dark room?
Carol's Dark Sarcasm.
Oh, Carol's Dark Sarcasm.
Yeah.
I butchered that. Sorry. But the entire time, weeks ago up until a couple months ago up until now, everyone that I engaged with on Twitter, myself included, we all thought that the Kraken were going to take a defenseman. I think it was like 67% when I joined your stream today had said that they thought it was going to be a defenseman. So Kraken fan base was pretty much consensus that it was going to be a defenseman. Me personally, I wanted one of these offensive defensemen. Going into it, I was thinking that Zeev Boehm was going to be taken 5th or 6th, and we would probably be left with either Yakimchuk or Dickinson. It ended up being that we had like all 5 of the offensive defensemen that I wanted right in front of us. We had Perek, Boehm, Dickinson, we didn't have Yakimchuk. But yeah, we had all those guys, and then we picked Catton. Catton's a really good forward, but I wanted an offensive defenseman because they're a lot more valuable to me in the first round. But yeah, Mike, if you want to do that. Oh, and I got a dip. I'm playing a men's league tournament up in Linwood, so I'm gonna go get my anger and frustration out by being the best offensive defenseman I can be. And yeah, nice chatting with you guys.
Okay, absolutely. Derek. All I care about is your plus minus tonight. Okay.
All right, sounds good. I'll upload my stats after the game.
Okay.
Maybe a few highlight clips too. We can throw that into the.
I'll log into the live barn.
Awesome. Thanks again, Derek, and have a good game tonight. Appreciate all the contributions today. And again, shout out to your Beneath the Waves crew. If you guys are watching and you're not following, go like, subscribe over there as well on YouTube. They just launched a channel. So thanks, Derek. Have a good night. We'll talk to you again soon, okay?
All right. Thank you, guys. See ya.
See ya.
Carol says, right. So, yeah, and I'll just kind of review the numbers. 54 goals last season for the Chiefs, Carol. So the kid can score, and we talked a little bit earlier about, the Kraken needing forwards that are scorers, playmakers, obviously, because, you saw the results at the big club last season. They didn't score enough goals. So it's a little bit of a surprise just because we are expecting a defenseman to go. I think most people consensus-wise thought the Kraken would go defenseman, but they liked what they had in Berkeley Catton at number 8, and that's the way they went. So, yeah, I would encourage you to go watch some of Catton's highlights and things like that over on the Spokane Chiefs website and YouTube. So, great player, great scorer, a little smaller in stature, but as you've seen with Jagger Fergus, that doesn't really matter. Go ahead, Jim.
Almost a typical, I don't know, 5'11" winger. At least we're not doing that cookie cutter thing that we did in the first year and a half with 5'8", 5'9", in and out bottom six guys, you know.
Yeah.
You know what? He's completely respectable. I was just reviewing elite prospects out of the 18 scouting block. And I'm not going to read each scout, but I'm going to give you the quick number: 6, 8, 12, 14, 3, 11, 7, 5, 4, 5, 8, 5, 9, 8, 5, 8, 3. I mean, he fell in at 8 slot. We grabbed him at 8 slot.
Mm-hmm.
They see something they like. He's born in the hockey capital of the world, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. He played his amateur there. He lit it up in the amateur leagues all the way through Bantam. Got drafted into the WHL, and he's been doing, his point per game is way up. The guy can do it. I mean, they want production. They'll work it, and if it doesn't work out, then he's part of that pool system that we can toy with, because we've got a lot of forwards. I guess I was one of the 33% that still wanted a forward. So,
well, and maybe, in the future it becomes a trade piece. It doesn't always have to be a player that's going to make your lineup and make a difference at the big club level. You can always use these guys as assets, and obviously that's the tough part of the business. But if it doesn't end up fitting, maybe there's another team that comes calling that it does fit with, and you gotta roll with that. Figure out what's best for the business side of things.
And listen, we've got the 40th pick next. It won't be till tomorrow. Who knows what they're going to grab? And we've got 9 overall picks. Defensemen, both offensive and defensive minded, get picked throughout the whole draft. And like I said, Mike, I think we'll probably end up doing something, not maybe this year, but definitely the next couple, with FA work or trades for anything to solidify the top 4D, whether it's O or D. I'm not worried about it at all. Like we reviewed, out of the 6 categories, the ranking 15 was our best category of everything. So they're not pressed.
So this is the JFresh Hockey Final 2024 draft ranking. So it's the top 50 players that JFresh published over on Twitter. A great resource, obviously. So the Caps just took Parasak at, what are we at now? 17? Failing to remember. 17, the Caps took Parasak. And, so this is the overall rankings and where they thought they would end up as far as which team. So I'm trying to find Parasak in the top 50. And I don't see that name, according to JFresh. So I know that might be hard for you to see, Jim, but this name was not one that popped out to me when I was reading and doing some of my homework. But Caps go off the board a little bit, I guess.
That would be off the board because I'm not seeing him in elite prospects. I'm not seeing him for. What's the spelling on that? Parasak, like it looks almost.
Parasak. Parasak. And I might not be saying that one right.
Why the hell is that not showing up?
Did they draft a player that doesn't?
36. He's at 36 on elite.
Yeah, so and you see this sometimes. You see a player that a team likes, the profile, the size, the type of game that they play, and they just go get that player. And in some ways, like, oh, we can second guess that he wasn't in the top 50 of JFresh, or we haven't heard this or that. But they've got their own scouts, their own front office, their own decision making process, their own research, and obviously they saw something there they like. So Caps at 17, Tarek Parasak. Okay,
Just
Jim, a
remember
couple other topics too we're going to get into, but go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, whenever something surprises you in a draft, just always think about what I went through in 2014, I believe it was, with David Pastrnak at 25. So we all were scrambling, going, "Wait a minute, what's this guy?" So it happens all over the place all the time.
Yeah. And sometimes those guys end up being huge difference makers. So
yeah. I mean, come
it's
on.
just
25, David
what's going to
Pastrnak.
happen. Absolutely. So just a quick update on the poll today. If you're watching and you haven't voted yet, please vote, hit that like button, subscribe. If you're new to the channel, that all is great and helps the channel here. But the poll question today for the Kraken was, do you think they'll pick a defenseman or a forward? And kind of the end results were 63% thought we would go defenseman, 37% thought we'd go forward. So most people kind of leaning towards a defenseman, and the Kraken surprised us. So quite a few surprises in this first round across the board. Chicago, their pick is in at 18. This is Sasha Boisvert. So out of the USHL, and full disclosure, Jim and viewers, this is where it gets very suspect as far as my deep knowledge on the prospects. I'm going to probably read the name, some of their metrics, and hopefully, they have a great
career.
Great career. Yeah, great career, a great night, enjoying being picked, but I don't really have a very good familiarity.
It's okay
with Mr. Boisvert. So Boisvert. That's probably Boisvert because it's
It ranked 21 on Elite.
Goal scorer, 36 goals, 32 assists in 61 games just last season for Muskegon in the USHL. So a good center. And Chicago kind of stocking up on these players down the middle. They took, let's see, earlier in the draft, Levshunov. He was projected high. And stocking up. Chicago is going to be a good team to deal with here. It's going to take a little bit of time. Same thing for the Sharks. I don't know if next year is going to be a whole lot better, but we'll see. Teams can turn it around pretty quick, but when you've got a lot of youngsters like that and a lot of holes going into the offseason, San Jose is kind of an example of that. They were just really not great across the board, so a lot of holes to fill there, and one player is not going to put you over the edge. You could see the difference that Connor Bedard made for the Blackhawks last season, and also when he got hurt. Big hole in the lineup without him in there. But even Connor Bedard, one of the best players, one of the best young players in the world, is not going to be able to turn things around single-handedly. A la Connor McDavid, right? Like the Oilers did everything they could to come back in that series against Florida, and they fell short. And now they're staring at some pretty important decisions, franchise players, Draisaitl. And, we'll see. Oilers might look a lot different here real soon. When you get that close and you fall short, it is really hard to get back to that spot. And you could see it, Jim, if you want to kind of chime in on this a little bit. And let's just talk about the playoffs in general as some of these picks come through. But and maybe not specifically the matchups this year, but just the mindset and the thinking and the strategy in the playoffs. The Oilers, you could just see it in McDavid's face in that post-game interview. He was completely drained. Did everything he could to get him back in that series, trailing 3-0, attempting to complete the reverse sweep, and up against a really tough team in Florida. You already mentioned it a couple of times. I was surprised that they were able to get back in that series and do what they did. Just shows you, what a great accomplishment it was by the Oilers. But then you fall short, and now you're facing some pretty big decisions. And McDavid's going to be great for a long time, but you could tell that took a lot out of him, right?
Absolutely. I think a lot of us were surprised that, obviously when they got by Dallas, I think most people were predicting. And then it was time. I was like, okay, and look, I'm a McDavid fan. I'm a hockey fan. I'm a McDavid fan. I hate it when he gets beat up by people for no reason, just because he's good. There's no reason to get sour on this guy. He's not a whiner or anything. He's just a damn good hockey player. when they were down 3-0 and everybody was writing them off like that, oh, maybe they'll bring it to 5 or whatever and lose. And when they started bringing it back, the game changed. They studied the film and all. But what happened is Florida wasn't getting as physical. It was pretty noticeable. And that's their game. And so the Oilers took advantage of it, and you could see it. They dictated the play throughout. Guys got hot. Skinner stayed fairly hot during that time, and they brought it back. And Maurice and them just said, "Look, man, we got to get back to what got us those first 3 games." And it was noticeable in Game 7. They turned the board light on, and the boards were rattling, and that was the difference. But yeah, those 3 games on the comeback for Edmonton had that McDavid get on my back. I'm going to take you guys to the promised land type of vibe. And it just fizzled out. She said, last 12 minutes, I'd like to break down his ice time because he had to be absolutely gassed. I know you're double shifting at that point. I get it. That the bench is running short, but he was out there for major shifts. The whole top 6 was. And I thought, well, I mean, you got to, right?
Yeah.
But it was just weird. But the whole Draisaitl thing being so dry, right?
Right.
And then the last 2 games for McDavid, even though he was doing everything in his power to do something, he couldn't do anything for 2 games, the last 2 games, as far as production. He had the puck on a stick, breaking through the blue line, everything. But Draisaitl, one of my favorite guys to just all around watch, man, I mean, where was he? And that was a huge part of it.
Yeah, he didn't look, and I hate like excuses, injuries, blah, 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 blah. But something didn't look right there. It didn't look right from the get-go. I don't know.
That was weird.
If or when something happened, but yeah, kind of disappointing. Just completely dried up. And yeah.
I mean, just think of all the one-timers he was taking down at the bottom of the circle throughout the whole playoffs, and then boom, nothing in those 7 games.
And, maybe full marks to Florida because they did limit a lot of that and those looks down low. They just didn't make it available for him.
The more I watched that Florida team, they were built so well all the way around. Like we've discussed it, the size, the physicality, the hands. There's a lot of hands on that club for size. Yeah. It reminds me of the early bruising teams. There was that era of, okay, faster, smaller is what everybody's going to do now. And then we come back to the bigger, physical, roster all over the place, talent. It just keeps going, like the latest trend, right? With how to win the championship. But man, they were just so good. And I always think of Sam Bennett, like, he had a big series, obviously. Every time they've been mentioning his name, I just go back to the combine. How he carried that reputation that he couldn't do a pull-up. And I kept saying to myself, look at him do pull-ups now. Right? So crazy built team. Love it. I mean, they could go on a while here, regardless of who they lose and who they pick up,
Yeah, and there's always that tug of war that, being a trendsetter versus a follower, the pattern for a championship or the template that you want to follow.
Right.
You see it every year. You get the copycats, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, size, physicality, a team that can score, a team that is also strong defensively, special teams.
Yeah. I mean, how did they do it? 5-on-5, special teams. Just they pegged it on every category, and 4 lines deep. If you're not winning a cup, if you don't have 4 lines deep, straight up, you're not.
Yeah. Right.
And they had all the formula going.
I've talked, I think last audio podcast I put out, I talked a little bit about, like you can use your 4th line as a punishing, like a goon line, but that's really not, it's not how it works for extremely successful teams anymore. Like you're not just putting a guy out there to beat people up. Now there's a time and place for that. Absolutely necessary. But I think you're seeing generally teams rolling 4 quality lines. And that's the formula that's always going to work. It worked for the Kraken last year, right?
It did. I mean, if you can even though Hacksel's system tends to divvy up the minutes, but if you can pull 9 to 11 or 9-10 minutes on a fourth line on an energy line,
Mm-hmm.
on and off, and then your third line be your number one checking line against the number, or your line against the number one line, and you're good at those bottom six, you've done your job. And then the top six is going to just do damage up top.
Right.
And that's what they had. And
so we got
Bobrovsky just was incredible too, obviously.
Yeah. Goaltending, huge aspect.
I mean,
and he kind of showed up right when you needed that extra push, games 6 and 7. You know, McDavid, Draisaitl, et cetera, and Bobrovsky.
And he should have won the Conn Smythe.
Probably, yeah.
He should have. Look, they were just being friendly and handing out shit, just, whatever.
Yeah.
It kind of bothered me, but whatever.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of the player on the losing team getting it. In this case, I understand McDavid, his numbers were insane
They
through
were
the playoffs,
fine.
but
those early games was all Bob. All those games.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, yeah.
Timely saves too.
Yeah.
So Vegas took, sorry, just to update real quick. Trevor Connolly goes for Vegas, and we've got the Islanders on the clock. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
No, I'm good. I was just saying, I mean, he played better than he ever has,
Yeah, because there was a couple of times there with Bobrovsky in the playoffs where what's going on? The year against Nashville, I think Nashville, was that the sweep? When, or sorry, not Nashville, Columbus.
Yeah. Right. Against, who was that? Caps? No.
Columbus took them out. Right?
Yeah, I remember that. They're their only ever playoff win, right?
And that was with Tortorella behind the bench.
Yes. The only time that place got excited.
Yeah, unless I'm remembering that wrong, but oh no. That was Tampa.
What? What are you talking about?
Scratch that from the record. But going back to Bobrovsky. Mixed up my Florida team. Sorry, Florida people. Whatever. Bobrovsky had been a little bit back and forth in some of his playoff performances, but this year locked it down solid whole way through.
Right.
And the result is the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean, think what Skinner went through in those 4 rounds as well. He was getting just hammered by the media about some of those games.
Yeah. Well, and the Oilers, for them, yeah, goaltending, huge factor for all teams, but that story there has never been about Stuart Skinner leading them to the promised land. Let's be honest. Like, you're going to have to deal with probably mediocre goaltending with the Connor McDavid and the Leon Draisaitl in your top 4. There's like no way around it. But
it's been their thing.
Here's the Islanders pick.
They should go out and get Ullmark.
20, right? That'd be interesting.
Although, you know what? It's just a fine example of the team in front of you, though. Because, Ullmark was in Buffalo. He wasn't incredible. Comes to Boston, got a team in front of him. I mean, it happens, right?
And there goes Mr. Cole Yzerman to the Islanders.
Wow.
Yzerman, you know what? I thought he was going to go top 10.
Well, I had him at probably 11 or 12. But bottom line is, he's a perfect fit there.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be good.
Perfect fit. Oh, God. Yeah,
and he's a bigger kid, too. 6 foot, 197, Newburyport, Massachusetts.
He's going to be good.
Just 17.
I think that's a steal at that for sure. 20, pick 20. Come on, Cole Yzerman, get out of here.
58 goals, 31 assists in 57 games last season.
He looks like a hockey player, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Cool name, too. Just sounds good. Yzerman.
Yeah, and it's spelled differently.
Yeah.
But look at him. I mean,
he is committed to Boston. university for the next season, so you won't see him in the NHL next year. A lot of these players you won't see for a couple of years at least, but Yzerman committed back to Boston University next season.
Mhm.
And to kind of continue our talk just in general about playoffs, I had a few thoughts here coming into the episode today, Jim. As far as just watching the playoffs, and I know you said you'd start to tune out a little bit as the weather gets nicer, but playoffs in general, they kind of give you that opportunity to just, I don't know, kind of focus in, dial in on other teams, their talent, their roster construction, their goaltending, special teams, right? And some ways it kind of gives you that glimpse into what are some of the shortcomings of your own team that you root for, right? And in our case, the Seattle Kraken. In my past life, the San Jose Sharks. And I got to see a lot of great hockey from the Sharks, and I was starting to see some good hockey from the Kraken. Maybe not so much last year, but anyway, the playoffs, it gives you that ability to kind of assess in real time what you think your team is capable of, right? Could my team match up against the teams that I'm watching right now? Or would they be blown out of the water, right? Like if you take that Kraken team from this past May and you drop them into that series against Dallas in the playoffs this year, I don't think it's going to go to 7 games. I think it's going to be a 4 or 5 game Stars move on. So, and you can chime in on this. I think for me, that's why I love watching hockey, especially at the NHL level. Seeing other teams, maybe teams that I'm not rooting for, you get to watch it in more of an objective way. And it kind of allows for that comparison and assessment to my team. And, it allows you to see some of the things in areas where they need to improve right in front of you in real time. So maybe share your perspective on that.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, we all know where this third year went. It was just so up and down. Streaky as all get out compared to the year 2, where we got spoiled and went to the second round in 7 games and lost to that Minnesota or that Dallas team you were just mentioning. Maybe we could have played, could we have played against them? No, nothing was going right. Yes, I do appreciate watching the other clubs and seeing what they're doing. But at the same time, a lot of times when you hop into that playoffs, as you know, it's all about timing and lining up everything. The goaltender hot, the structure hot, the PP hot.
Right.
Because a month before that, it might not have fit with a lot of these clubs. Like the farther the Oilers went on, the better they got for once. Even defensively, their PK was outstanding. They didn't have much of a PK during the regular season, if I'm correct on that. I can't. So it's things like that. And then Florida, it's funny. I sit there, I go back to the Stanley Cup or the playoffs during COVID and everything, when they played up in the bubble up there in Edmonton and Toronto. And I was doing a lot of walking by the TV while it was on and hearing names that you hear a lot. And one of them I used to joke about because I love saying his name, and it just came up all the time, was Verhaeghe.
Yeah.
And I thought, Jesus, his name comes up a lot on some big goals, to the point where I started looking up his young gun upper deck card. And I said, screw, I'm buying this card because it's kind of reasonable and he's hot. Well, guess what? He's been hot every year. He was hot in this run for Florida after the trade, and they must kind of hate that in Tampa right now. So yeah, it's just all about that timing, getting hot, and of course the goaltender first in that category. And it just kind of, you get a chance to focus in on players, kind of like being in a fantasy league or something. All of a sudden you're picking up players that you don't normally pay attention to, and you're really paying attention to them. It's great. It's great exposure for the mind to figure out a player and the character of the player. Is he offensive? Is he is defensive minded? Is he is he a two-way player? All that stuff. So like I said, I enjoy it. All I got to do is hear it. I don't have to see it. I can hear it and figure out the game. And yeah, that's what was going on, a lot of that.
Yeah, I'll quite often listen on the radio broadcasts when I'm taking in playoff games. So the Habs pick is in now here at 21. Michael, I believe it's Hage. or
Yeah,
Haig.
yeah.
Age from Ontario, Mississauga, 188 pounds, 6'1". So that's the second pick in the first round for the Montreal Canadiens, who scored Ivan Demidov earlier at 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this Montreal team, they've got a little ways to go, but just feel like this is one of those teams that could maybe flip the script a little bit, surprise you a little bit here sooner than later. 54 games last season, 33 goals and 42 assists. And that's pick number 21 for Montreal. And Jim, I'll just kind of maybe tail on what we were talking about with NHL playoffs a little bit. And you alluded to it a little bit. That I think the one thing that you do have to be careful about when you watch playoff hockey and you're comparing or contrasting to your team that you like is you got to keep in mind that that intensity level goes way up. I mean, round one, they shoot the gun, everybody off to the races, and teams just, those first couple rounds are chaos a lot of times, and that compete level goes up. So everybody's raised the bar. So it's hard to compare a regular season Kraken team, for example, against a Kraken team that may have flipped the switch and brought that intensity a little bit more in the first round. So the psychology is a little bit different. You're approaching a 7-game series as a whole differently than you would just one random game in the middle of the week. The stakes are way higher. And when you think about all that, these other teams that did make the playoffs, the roster composition, and the things that propelled them, like you're talking about the penalty kill for the Oilers kind of out of nowhere and just getting on a heater, great goaltending. But we saw how that switch can flip. And maybe if you want to talk a little bit more about that, maybe in relation to the Kraken, but just in general, right?
Well, so, there's an element that's in here that we haven't touched on yet, and that's the coaching. And we're about to receive a new coach here for the next season. If you're watching playoff hockey a lot, you'll see as a team advances, you'll see that the coaching chemistry of the whole entire coaching on the bench, the assistants and everything, start to gel, and the line matching and so on and so forth. And it becomes an absolute art with the draws and this and that. And of course, you have to have the right personnel on the ice. But you could see it big time in Edmonton there for a while. I mean, remember what he did? He came in after 30 games or 30 days. They had lost 10 in a row, 8, whatever it was. He comes in, he gets him to the final, game 7. I mean, that's crazy. It could totally flop next year, but it's things like this. This is all part of the formula. And I'm excited for Bilesma to see what's going to happen. I'm not going to be heavy judge out front. I'm going to let it percolate a little bit here. He's got a lot to do. I'm a little bit curious how much of this, you can't tweak the system hard right out of the box because it was built that way from expansion.
Yeah.
But there's some things that obviously have to change. We saw it happening throughout the year, and it was getting a lot of people getting uptight about it, even when it's making the internet and everybody's talking about it, it doesn't look good. But all these things, and you relate them to playoff if you can get there. It's all part of it, and like you said, the intensity level. That's also when the players that are injured, which is a lot of them, have to take that next level and override the pain. And this is where the chemistry and the makeup of the club, of the players selected, of the things we don't see that the scouts do because they follow these guys a lot. We can just look at it for surface and face value of a player, where they know the player from interviews and following them, how they can play through pain and adversity. Well, we might not get that. So it's all part of the build, along with the analytics, the eye test, everything. And it is hopefully built into the intensity and the grind of the 82 and the 2.5 months, or the 2 months of hell that run to June 20, whatever it was. The date that carries
20
on far too long in my head, but I can't do anything about that.
24th,
But
June 24th.
yeah, I mean, that's crazy to me. I saw the Stanley Cup in 2011 in person. I saw 2 games, and I saw game 3 and game 4. I saw game, or the cup was won on the 15th. So, I mean, I get it, money and everything. We talked about this, Mike, a little bit, and I know you can't go backwards, but I think you can tweak the schedule to make it all fall in better. That's just me, though.
So the last game was played Monday, June 24th. It actually was the second most watched
Yes.
NHL game in history, right? Did I read
I
that right?
believe. What was the first one? What was that? Was in 2008? Was it It was the St. Louis Blues game, Game 7 against the Bruins, right? I believe. I'm not
Uh,
sure. I think I read that the other day, and that would make sense because that was pre-COVID,
yeah,
before the
see if I can
bubble.
find that. I don't know if the
Anyway,
graphic that I had listed it, but
yeah, Sean Bellman and I had a little back and forth thing about. I was a little pissy, because the delays and the breaks, the 3-game breaks or 3-day breaks, and even two-day breaks between games. I get
yeah,
it that they were trying to line up on the weekend for those 2 first weekends, okay, but when you come to the 3rd weekend, they bypass it and put it on Monday, and I'm like, come on, man. And
yeah,
Sean's like, Monday's a great day for it. And I said, why? Because college basketball does it in the Final Four. I mean, um, at that point, I think people just want to see a game, whether it's Friday through any day, get it
yeah,
going. I, if I'm going out to dinner on a Saturday night, I'm still going to watch that game.
right.
You're only relying on the casual fan on that Monday night. I don't get it. So we kind of went back and forth on that, and I'm like, Mondays are Mondays, man. Whatever.
It did feel like both teams played with the amount of jump that I would hope for and expect. So the 2
Oh
days
yeah,
between travel games, that was good. I don't think I'm gonna, complain too much about that, especially a distance from Edmonton to Florida. But
right.
yeah, I do prefer, could we just maybe accelerate the preseason or start the season even a week, just a
Yes,
week sooner.
absolutely. You could easily do it a week, easily.
Yeah.
Um, because when they play the World Cup of Hockey, which is not every once, they've only had what, 3.
Mm-hmm.
They run that in September, and that's a real tournament. That is not the World Championships. This is a real tournament where guys can get hurt before the season actually starts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's the best
Yep.
roster you can build. It's the best roster you can build. But anyway, you could easily start last 10 days or 10 days before the regular season that now. And look, the All-Star break weekend does not have to be a whole week. It can go back
Right.
to the old 3-4 day at best. And that's just me. It's stretched out. We talked about, I was a fan of the 78 game. We're at 82. And as you said, no, you can't go backwards. It's all about money. You're right. But I don't know, man.
Nashville pick is in at 22. Yegor Surin, also a Russian. 43 games last season. 5 goals, 18 assists in 19 games in Russia Junior League playoffs. So Nashville, another team to keep an eye on. I think they jumped off the page for me a little bit last season. Barry Trotz back in the fold there in the front office. That's a good team. And I think they just locked in UC Saros on an 8-year deal. Incredible goaltender. I'm always sketchy about these 8-year deals, but that's just part of the business too.
As we all are.
Especially with goaltenders. But
I know it's crazy. And the unfortunate thing is all these contracts mirror each other when it comes to, the standard contract for where a guy is on his second, third contract, a goaltender here, those long-term goaltenders, that to me died with guys like Carey Price and,
Roberto Luongo.
Guys like that. Yeah, I mean, and that was quite a bit more affordable even back then. But the one thing about Saros that always blows me away is his size. Everybody else is 6'4" and above, and he's just like this little boxy in there. You know what I mean? It's like
Oh.
he's still doing it, but he looks so small compared to everybody else.
I'm thinking of a different guy. Sorry. Yeah, let's go look
no,
at his
Saros is tiny
stature.
compared to.
Who was the goaltender for Nashville before him? I have him stuck in my brain.
Pekka Rinne. He's up there on the, wasn't that him up there with the bald?
Yeah. He's a big dude.
Oh God.
UC Saros not as big.
No, he's very small compared to him.
I think Pekka Rinne, his stature was so big that it's just imprinted on my brain that's how big the Nashville goalie is.
Well, he's
no
a
matter
legend.
Who
they love him. They love him. They got a statue of him out front.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, quick number for you. 16.3 million viewers watched Game 7 of that Stanley Cup across North America, the second most NHL game on record. So we were right.
And the first?
The first, let's see, is it listed? Also, Stanley Cup Final Game 7 was Sportsnet's most watched broadcast ever. Not a surprise in Canada to me at all.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, 15 million
that's
Canadians.
Where they were getting it.
This also doesn't list. I'll see if I can find that as we go, though.
Whatever.
But yeah, so it was. You know,
obviously having a Canadian team in the final helps. Duh.
Yeah.
I don't care where you're watching it.
Okay, so speaking of the final, we did have a couple of thoughts that some of the community shared and contributed here. So Derek weighed in on this, and Will as well. So let's listen to Derek's thoughts on the Stanley Cup final matchup between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. Here's what Derek had to say.
Final thoughts on Florida Stanley Cup champs. The only thing I don't really care about Florida. I think it's cool. They're kind of like a defensive team. They have a lot more offensive power than the Kraken though. So, but I think the headline Florida man wins the Stanley Cup is kind of dope. So that's all I have to say. Also, apologies. I have really bad allergies right now. So it might sound like I'm dead, but I'm super here. I'm ready for the draft tomorrow. It's going to be so fun. Hope to see all of you guys on Twitter, on YouTube, all that jazz. Go follow it, BTWSEA, and follow Sasquatch NHL on every single platform. All right. Have a great rest of your day.
So Derek all in on the Florida man as Stanley Cup champions. Here was Will's breakdown on final thoughts for Florida and Edmonton in the final.
Watching the Stanley Cup this year, I'm stunned, honestly, that Florida managed to win that. I thought it was a fait accompli as soon as Edmonton managed to come back from 3 games down to force a Game 7. But, it was a testament to, good goaltending, among other things. I mean, Bobrovsky had a couple of rough games, but stepped up when his team needed him the most. And, good defense shuts down good offense. Connor McDavid played his heart out, just couldn't get the puck in the net. Great win for Florida. They came up short last year, and it looked like they were going to blow it in epic fashion this year. So I was glad to see that they won it. I've got Florida I could care less about, but Edmonton keeps beating us, and I take that personally. It's like the Jordan meme. I took that personally. So I was happy to see Edmonton go down and go Florida. And let's hope that before too long, it's our turn.
That was Will Harrison weighing in on the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup. We had a trade while you were away there, Jim. Let me pop up the draft board here. The Ducks and Leafs swapped picks. So the Ducks are on the clock next here at 23. Leafs move back to 31. And so the Ducks now, with their second pick of the first round, a little sooner than originally slated. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised with the ratings, I'll be honest, just because I don't know. I think a lot of people tend to start to venture outside that late in the year. And then, maybe on paper, not the most intriguing names for a matchup for a casual fan, but it really ended up being an incredible series. The drama, the comeback from 0-3 by Edmonton, and then you got that really, really good Game 7, and just the intensity across the board, I thought, ratcheted up the way a series should. It just got better and better and better. And I guess maybe my only complaint, like I said, was I wish it had just been about a week earlier. And maybe next year will, or maybe in the near future. Next year's probably too late at this point, but yeah, I feel like the ratings could be that much better if it was just a little bit earlier in June.
Yeah. I think, once it got to a game 7, people were like, even game 6, people are like, okay, I better tune into this, whether you're kind of casual or not, or the bona fide hockey fan. The Florida factor is interesting to me because I just think of Florida as kind of because you go back 8 years and that was a dead market. There was nobody in that building. And then watching a lot of the post game or the post celebrations around town, it's like they're showing up with a cup, hanging out at some pub or something. There's just not that many people around. It's kind of weird, but they, on a national level, it happens. So.
All right, we're getting there, Jim. We're at pick 23, and it's in for the Ducks, who traded into this spot with the Leafs. Stian Solberg out of Oslo, Norway, 6'2", 205 pounds.
Wow.
One of 3 2024 draft-eligible players there. Oops.
Is that the second Is that the second Norwegian born in this draft?
Yeah, I think so. Because I remember they were talking about this on the TSN broadcast that I was watching. You're going to have 2 Norwegian players probably in the range of, somewhere in the 20s probably go.
Impressive. Kind of like...
Had a goal and assist in 5 games at the World Junior Championship for Norway here just this year. And so Anaheim, again, identifying a player that they want, going after it, swapping with Toronto, moving up 8 spots there to snag Stian Solberg.
Wow.
2 goals and assists in 7 games at the 2024 World Championship. And I talked about this earlier, but I do really like the updated Ducks logo. What were you saying?
That whole jersey looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a lot of bandwagon people on the fanatic thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you got to give fanatics a chance, right? Like
you have to. The top level jersey is going to be top level jersey. It is. It's been that way forever. I mean, I can pick apart the Adidas jersey for crying out loud. I can.
I did read too that they are going to be sewn on the numbers and the name plates. So a lot of the Adidas jerseys were just iron-on patches,
except for like certain players on the roster that they knew moved well.
So we got the Colorado Avalanche on the clock at 24. Kind of the focus today for this stream. We obviously Kraken fans here. We've talked a lot about goal scoring being an issue. Feels like the Kraken are in agreement with that. They drafted Mr. Catton at number 8, and he's a goal scorer. Plays for the Spokane Chiefs. I think a lot of us thought Kraken were going to go after a defenseman, and that's not the case. So, Jim, we know obviously the Kraken struggled to score goals last season. Would you say that they fell to mean, or do you think that they fell even further below what they're actually capable of? Is it somewhere in the middle, or is last year's version of the Kraken and the amount of scoring that we saw from that roster, is that what they are?
Okay. I know you've heard my take on this personally many times, Mike. Year 2 was freakish, if you back it up, in my opinion, especially bottom 6. We've gone over this ad nauseum, it seems. A lot of people want to just automatically throw the whole, you got rid of this guy, that guy, and everything, and look what they're doing type of thing. It just doesn't work like that. There was players that played over their head, and I look at Geeky's numbers; they weren't nothing to write home about. And the other players, it was just a freakish year, and everybody played above their head. We got to the 7th game in round 2. We all knew. I mean, to repeat that is really difficult. I knew we'd fall back. I
Yeah.
knew we would. Where, I don't know. I actually thought we were a bubble. We didn't even become a bubble. Um, I think it's a combination. Too high in year two, to judge. Like let's throw that's an anomaly year out. And then we underperformed in year three. And this is where I have a struggle with the hack system and his minutes delivered throughout the line. Trying to build almost an equal lineage team, except for line four. The whole 16, 17 minute, 14 to 17 minute up and down three lines. I'm not into that. I want my top six doing top six number minutes. I want my third line doing their thing, and I want my fourth line doing. Yes, we had injuries here and there. We had to play with that game, but guys like Yams was getting screwed on ice time. There's no question about it. And then guys like Tatar got really cold in the last third. So these are guys that would put up numbers if they had more ice time. Say Yams, and then Tatar got cold. And then other guys underperformed, the Tanevs, this, and then our top six underperformed for the most part when you break it down. So it's a mid deal. Second year was way above, and last year was bottom. So it's an average out middle thing. So I would like, we got to step it up to even think about being a bubble, and guys are just going to have to perform. And I just know they will. And you can't sit guys and then expect them to not to produce. So,
right.
It's going to be interesting with these guys like Tolvanen and all this stuff. And Yams is probably going to be gone.
Yeah.
Tolby, how are we going to work that deal out? He could go cold. You just don't know. And remember, we've had guys that, like I said, in that top six, or even Karche was cold for what did we count up? A 19 game there for a little bit. So
yeah,
all these guys, yeah. So as much as we like players and think they're automatic snipes, they got cold. So everybody's got to step up all the way to the top line. Maddie, everybody. And Burakovsky cannot be hurt. That is, well, I can't remember how many games he's played versus missed since we picked him up, but it's a 50-50 deal.
So there's the, just to interject a little bit here, 24th pick to Utah, Cole Baudouin. And Utah. I think that was about where that name was projected, if I remember right. About 20.
Let's take a look.
25-ish. From Ontario, 6'2", 210. And yeah, Jim, I think the Cartier lack of offensive numbers was an issue. I feel like his game developed forward, though. He was all over the place. Physical. He definitely stepped into that physical role that I think will make it easier to, potentially, if we have to say goodbye to like Yanni Gourde or Brandon Tanev, I think Cartier is ready to fill that grit factor. But going to need the goals and the scoring back from him as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, maybe some of these things, and we talk about this a lot, and people weighed in on this. I'll play a few clips here as we go, but when times got tough, that's when you need your leader to step up. And there were big stretches last season where that didn't happen for the Kraken in the goal scoring department, and a lot of other factors. We talk about the kind of the reputation they got for being a soft team. So the question is, will we get a captain this fall? Obviously, that's not going to fix everything, but I think it provides kind of a demarcation for this team identity-wise, and would love to hear your thoughts on that, the importance of a captain and what that can actually translate and mean to a Kraken team that struggled last season.
Yeah, I think it absolutely has to happen. I feel like it should have happened at the start of year three. There were several candidates that would have fit the role perfectly. Whether it's a forward or defenseman, I've got my people in my head. I was surprised it didn't happen last year. The fan base wanted it. You got to appease your fans at the same time on stuff like this. Trading players and picking up players, you don't listen to the fans there. But this kind of thing, you should, right? Because,
Yeah.
This team needed some leadership through what they were going through. It wasn't good. Somebody needed to step up, and it probably would have helped if it was in the first quarter of the year to help everything, But it's got to happen, especially new coach, we just turned the page here. It's got to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if they announced it, the day before opening night. And I don't know how you feel about that, but the timing has to happen now. It's not like the timing is good. It has to happen.
Yeah, I feel like you get through camp, obviously. You see kind of where things are sorted in the hierarchy, in the pecking order, and this and that. But, I think a lot of the opinion that they didn't name a captain was because they want it to be a younger guy, maybe a Matty Beniers, maybe even a Shane Wright, depending on how things go, and let them kind of carry that torch. But yeah, it was noticeable last season. And we talked about, that video that Emerald City took against I think it was the Nashville game, where the bench was just completely silent, down and out. And that's
I tweeted
really,
that instantly.
Yeah. To me, that was the moment where, okay, Hackstall's job is probably seriously in jeopardy at this point, because that was just not okay. And
totally,
times like that, you need a captain, and you need some vocalization on the bench, get the boys going. Yeah, it was definitely a glaring issue at that point of the season for me. And it's a learning process a little bit, but I do agree. I think a captain will be named. I think it'll be obviously after camp, probably in the lead up to that first regular season game. And I think that will help energize not only the team, but the fan base a little bit too, something new to rally around and talk about. Because that's fun too. A lot of the hockey games that the Kraken played last season weren't very entertaining. They played some pretty boring hockey games last season.
Yeah,
and that's got to change. They got to score more goals. They got to get fired up a little bit, and I think a captain can help kind of energize, push that button a little bit for them. Even if it's somebody that maybe they're not going to be around 2, 3, 4 years, maybe you just put that C on the sweater and you let it sit for that season, and you see how it goes from there.
Yep, it's I'm sure we've all played in our heads who and whatever, but I know that has changed over the last 2 years as well. I think there's probably no more than 3 players that should probably get it, as far as the opportunity to get it. But it's got to happen.
Okay, so we're at pick 25, Boston Bruins. Your boys, your team. This is their only pick in the first round.
Typical area for them too.
It's the problem with being good. You're always kind of at the end of the first round.
Yeah, let me see who's not been taken here that is lighting my fuse here.
And maybe regardless of the name that ends up getting taken, and we'll come back to the captain conversation a little bit, because I do want to play those clips that people sent in for the Kraken. But maybe area of need as opposed to player name for the Bruins.
My opinion on this?
Yeah.
Geez, like they rank a D in prospects as it is. God, their D core is so weird. It's so up and down. I feel like they got to go D here. They're just spec, and Charlie didn't have a very good year this year. Well, I mean, he had a decent year, but boy, in the playoffs, he had some blunders for a guy that's supposed to be one of your leaders.
Yeah.
That being McAvoy. I don't know. But they also got a couple of kids right now that are coming up that has kind of been surprises. So I don't know, man. This is kind of a weird one. They're not very good at, frankly, they're, like I said, they're D plus at best when it comes to prospect pool. But their MO is blast it out in the regular season, see what happens after that, right?
Yeah. Oh, unrelated to the Bruins, but I just remembered, it sounds like Aaron Ekblad's going to be on the move from Florida too.
I've
so
been hearing that.
Young defender there. So Cam Neely, leads the Bruins contingent onto the stage. They're putting their pick in at 25 for Boston. Don Sweeney on the mic right now. So here's the Bruins selection at 25. Dean Letourneau out of St. Andrews College at center. And I think the scouts liked this kid, so not a defenseman, but 214-pound center, 6'7", some size for this kid as well. And can never go wrong with a big center down the middle for the
Seems
Bruins.
Like kind of a typical pick from them, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
As he makes his way down the stage there. Committed to play at Boston College next season. So, man, Boston has some incredible hockey being played, not only at the pro level, but the collegiate level.
Always.
It's just, what a place to be to watch hockey.
It is. There's no question about it. And the Beanpot tournament is always great.
Right.
There's some talent everywhere. Look at that kid. He's tall.
Yeah, 6'7".
Wow. Jeez. But they have drafted guys like that at the center position before. Wow.
Hidden talent can windmill dunk a basketball. 56 games, 61 goals, 66 assists last season. So yeah, I mean, obviously the size jumps out at you. The kid's big. Looks like he's got a pretty, good release, good handle on the puck. Yeah. They're showing the highlight package here on the screen. But yeah, he kind of towers over all these other players at this level.
It's just so strange to see a centerman or any forward at that height.
Yeah. So we'll see how that translates. That's always part of the equation too. Can that player's game at that level translate to the NHL level?
Wow.
Pick 25.
Huh.
So a couple more thoughts here as far as, the Kraken where they might go with new captain. Like I said, a few people from the community here weighed in. Derek was one of those. Here's what Derek had to share with us in regards to the Kraken naming a captain potentially soon.
Will we have a captain soon? I would personally be upset if the Kraken didn't name a captain before this upcoming season. I'm 50-50 torn between Eberle and McCann. Either of them would instill an identity of offensive production, something that the Kraken has never really sought to build themselves from, in my opinion.
So, I mean, Jared McCann, that's a name that's been on the list. Scores goals. He's steady leader. He's not super vocal all the time, but a name that's been part of the constant conversation for Seattle, and a big reason for their success when they had it, right? Even last year when he got injured in the playoffs, came back, was a big part of round 2, and leading them to get there in the first place. Maybe just share some of your thoughts on Jared McCann.
Agreed. He was not in my conversation up until, say, last year. Only because we all know who the alternatives were, the 4, and then they would rotate the 1 in and out. So any one of those guys has a chance to get it, correct? But I'm kind of old school in the selection process and how it goes, and I break it down to minutes. And a lot of times minutes brings in the defenseman. I was always high from day one, well, after we lost Gio. Even though he's on the quieter side, but his stature is just very firm. And that was Adam Larson. I always thought a defenseman that pulls minutes is a good choice for that job. And so he was always there with me right at the top. But then last year comes sneaking in just because of McCann's stepping up every year. He's the first one to sign an extension, all that stuff. And he showed up every year. So all of a sudden he enters the conversation. And I look at the other guys that, we're always on the table that people talked about, the Jan Igors, this or that, the Schwartz even. But then I look at their overall game and their minutes, and I kept pulling them out of the picture. The Gord minutes are down. Schwartz was hurt a lot, things like this. So I just kept going back to Larson, but now I've got McCann in there for sure, and he's still got what, 3 years? Yeah. So that would fit because he signed a 5 in the second year, correct?
Yeah, 5 year, 25
Okay.
million. Yep.
So he's in the running, and Larson is in the running for me. After that, they're all A's. I'm a firm believer of minutes on the ice, though, because you got to be out there with the decision process a lot.
Right.
PK, whatever, playoff battles. You need to have step at the circle with that C on your at the penalty box circle and be discussing with the refs what's going on. And like I said, he's got a little bit of a quiet demeanor about him, but well, they both do. But he's just very firm, and I know he's respected. And same with McCann. He's proven his worth here. He's our guy. Either one of those two.
So yeah, McCann on contract through the end of the 2027 season that ends there.
Right.
So he'll be a free agent 2027 summer.
Yep.
So yeah.
He also seems like the kind of player, regardless of what this franchise goes through, that they will sign his contract again. Whether it blossoms in his play or even just kind of mediocres out, he just seems like the kind of guy they will continually look to do contract with.
So at pick 26, the Los Angeles Kings select Liam Greentree out of Windsor. Right wing, 6'3", 18 years old. Originally from Oshawa, Ontario. So Kings adding offense, winger up front. Going to be interesting to see what the Kings they're going to do next year. So they're a little bit in transition, up and coming. Maybe didn't go exactly the way they wanted. Yeah. Yep.
They're one of those teams that are hard to peg. Like with me is Calgary as well. Though I can never in the Pacific. Those are the two that I get flipped on all the time.
Well, and they had all sorts of issues scoring for a while there, and Todd McClellan, under his tenure, no longer with the Kings, and onward they go. But yeah, I agree. This is a tough team to figure out. Feels like they could go either way at times. They were right there in the running all season. But maybe not the roster composition to ultimately get it done. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they kind of shuffle things around. Carolina up next at 27. So we're kind of getting towards the end of the first round. I did want to play those other clips, though. Here's what Heather had to weigh in on the Kraken and the captain situation. And we also have a clip from Mr. Will Harrison. So here's Heather's take on the Seattle Kraken potentially naming a captain this next season.
Will we have a captain soon? I think we need to have a captain soon. I think the captain by committee worked really well in the first season. I think it worked really well in the second season. And I think it did not work at all in the third season. And I just think that we had potentially too many voices. And we really needed that one person who was going to come in and unify the locker room, fire them up. And I just think that maybe not that any of our alternate captains were bad by any means. I just think that maybe it was too many voices and we needed that one super powerful one that's going to cut through the locker room. I'm not sure if I'm sold on who yet, because I really thought that when we extended Eberle, we might see like, hey, he's captain now, or over the summer see that. But the more I think about it, the more I'm just not sure if that's the right fit. I think we sort of need someone who's maybe a little more vocal. And I'm not in the locker room, so obviously I don't know. Maybe he is super vocal there. But I do think that whatever happens, we might be surprised by it, just because I think it really is going to come down to those talks in the locker room. And, I guess we'll just see. But I do think we need that captain. We need that title on somebody to bring the team together. I think a lot about Jared McCann, just because, a lot of the players really, really care, but Jared McCann just cares so much. And I think he could be good in that role. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, but I do think we need one, and I do think we'll see one.
So Heather kind of, putting a vote out there for McCann. In general, maybe a more vocal leader, right? And I don't know if McCann's that guy necessarily. But I do think a little piss and vinegar might not be such a bad thing for the Kraken as an identity, even just if it's for fan perception, because I feel like they got a little bit lost in that area. Jim, would you say that the Kraken have a clear and concise identity here as we go into season 4?
No. I think this is the perfect timing, like we said about things. New coach, new system, new way. Not much of a change probably in the system, just because you just don't want to take these guys that have been tweaked from what they've never done before to, coming back to reality type of deal.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before, and it does have to be a more physical team for sure. They have to show that they're going to protect Maddie. Certain guys, and we know who they are, need to step up way more than they ever did. Guys like Alexiak. We know Borgen is the nuts on the team. This guy goes nuts, and that's fine. But at times he even has to step up, and not necessarily so much in just like dropping gloves instantly, but like get in the mix and make it known that you're not going to pull that nonsense on my player. We know Ole's got to do it more. And at times even Larson does. He backed off a little bit too. And I'm just talking D there because that's who you typically think. But Ty Karche did his job and got nasty when he should have. I think our forwards need to be a little more gnarly. We may not have that in the chemistry makeup of the guys. And this is why I've always been a Melanson fan, because I know he can be that fourth liner if you just get him up, because he'd be the perfect fourth line guy, and he can snipe. You don't have to worry about his softness. The guy, that's his game. I mean, and who knows what's going to happen with him. And they've got 2 players like him down in Coachella right now, and I have a feeling that the other's contract is going to run out. So maybe that'll be a fourth line option. But yeah, maybe we'll do some FA work too as well in that bottom 6 in that department. But it needs to change for sure. And I just mean smart play. I don't need dumb penalties. I don't need Susie type penalties late in the game.
Right.
I just need somebody to always have that presence that, like, hey, you know what? Don't pull that shit on my guy, okay?
Right.
That's all I need. That's it. So we don't have an identity really. I don't think we ever technically have. I think we're too young to even know what it is, but I think it's time to start, because we got Bilesma coming in, and the guy's won a cup before. He knows what he's doing. It's always been a puzzle to me why he went backwards that way. It doesn't matter at this point. He's here. I think he can play a tougher game too.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm 100% with you on this. I don't think that the identity has formed, or at least it hasn't formed maybe the way they would have wanted it to. I do think that the reputation has formed outside of Seattle, and I think that's kind of a problem. And we've talked about this at length. I've talked about it on the channel, on the podcast, etc. They're going to have to start changing that reputation a little bit. And I think this is a good year to start doing that. Start making some changes, approaching it a little bit differently. Like you said, you can't overhaul the system, and they may not even really want to. They may just want to do a few tweaks here and there. But you've got to have some lethality in some area of your game, right? So maybe you're not going to be the big, tough bruisers and beat people up, but you've got to find some way to create problems for the teams you're playing against. So if you are going to be a little bit softer, get roughed up and go on the power play, well, then your power play has to show up. It can't be 15th or 16th, middle of the pack in the league. you're going to have a top 10, top 8 power play, and that becomes your lethality. So then teams won't take so many liberties against your star players and stupid penalties. And vice versa, if you do want to play a little more step up and defend your players and a little more rough stuff, you're going to take more penalties. So then you got to be better at killing penalties. And your goaltending is a big part of that too. So some side of that equation they're going to have to choose. To me, it's pretty clear they're choosing the offensive firepower route, but the power play isn't there yet. And I think that'll come with some of the guys that are going to break through. Shane Wright will probably help that area. Burakovsky, if he could ever get healthy, always helps the power play. Just gives it that whole, just a different look. He's able to find those seams and pass the puck across, but it's so few and far between with his health that you can't rely on that. And so you're going to have to rely on Oliver Bjorkstrand, Jared McCann, Jordan Eberle is going to have to score a little bit more next year. And you've got to find a way to break through with your special teams. So I kind of went into that, I think, in the last pod, but it's really important. If you're going to solve this equation, the formula for more scoring, it's got to include your special teams, and it's got to be a better power play. You cannot be 16th in the league again and expect to make the playoffs if that's the way you're going to build your team.
Yep. I was reflecting back on the identity question some more, and I came up with no. But at the same time, the one league identity we had was that you always heard the other clubs' coaches saying they're a hard team to play against. Okay, I'll buy that. Because, when you didn't quite have the talent level on the roster, you had to do something different. And that was the one part of the actual system, which was high energy on his forecheck system and his defensive zone puck pressure system that made it hard to play against, but at the same time was an incredibly high liability that got turned around a lot in our faces. And that was the biggest negative about it. But that was the one thing. And I don't know if you're going to build a sustainable identity on that anyway with, a bunch of guys coming in the league that have been taught different ways and never stepped into a system like that. So.
Yeah, and it really flipped around quick when things weren't going good. And I feel like a lot of the players weren't buying in and playing that system the way it was designed, at least, and kind of got exposed towards the end of, it's, I don't know. You never really want to judge on the last month of hockey when you're clearly not going to make the playoffs, but you hope that there's some level of commitment and pride, and it didn't really ring through, I didn't think, until way too late. So, yeah. So we'll see. I think that we're probably going to have a captain. I think the emphasis on and you've heard it through the messaging, through the socials, through some of the emails. Dan Bilesma has even talked about it. Relationships between player and coach within the organization, being on the same page, buying in, playing for each other. These are all huge things. And you just watched Florida, a Panthers team, do it. And Paul Maurice, went in detail about the relationships on that team, that locker room had something different than he had ever seen. And he's been doing this for 30 some years. Right. So what an amazing job by Paul Maurice. And, I've joked with you in the background, Paul Maurice, incredible coach. He's kind of smart ass, right? Sometimes maybe a little much for my taste, but he's incredible media content, PR and interview, incredibly entertaining. Yeah. But yeah, he pushed all the right buttons with that locker room and paid off.
I was a fan of Maurice his very first year when he stepped into Hartford, and he was the youngest coach ever signed to that point. I think he was 32, something like that. And I remember sitting in the house thinking, God, this guy's 32 years old. And I'm, reflecting on what my age was at the time. And I'm like, wow, that'd be like me. So I've always had the ultimate respect for him coming in. I've always liked his game. I've always liked his system. And I've often thought he should have won a cup. His team should have gone farther before this, whether it was, Winnipeg or what have you. I just thought he was always better than his results. Great guy, witty in a different way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
that
I'm
would be
so
someone
happy
I'd
he
love to
won.
have a conversation with, you know?
Oh God, I just yeah, I'll just never forget his first day behind the bench. You should go look at the pictures of him. He looks so young on that bench, man.
I'm gonna go check that out here in just a second. We do have the Calgary Flames on the clock, 28th pick of the NHL 2024 draft. This is their second pick of round one. They took Zane Parekh at pick number 9, quality player.
Yep.
Right after Seattle took Catton. So we're kind of getting down towards the end of things, talking about the Kraken, talking about their identity, leadership, captaincy. Did I play Will's clip yet? Remind me.
Will's, I've seen at least, it depends on which one. What are we doing? The captaincy?
Or the captaincy.
I believe you have. The thing is when you do the playback, for some reason the audio I barely pick up.
Oh, gotcha.
And so I have to really listen, but I think you did. I think I heard him. Did he say McCann?
Oh, no, that was Heather. So I didn't
I
do
know
Will's
Heather did.
captain clip. I did
Okay.
his final thoughts. So, okay, we'll do that one real quick. Actually, we'll wait because Calgary just picked at 28. I was thinking that they were going to have this broadcast over by 7:30, but probably
It's
not.
because it's in Las Vegas.
Another
By the way,
20
has
minutes.
any of the listeners been to the Sphere and tell me about it?
Oh, yeah, please.
Because all I know is even regular. Well, there we go. Here's
Daniel says
Oops.
cotton will be a big piece. He's talking Catton. Be a big piece to be moved at the trade deadline in the WHL next year. Hopefully, Silvertips will be in a position to get him. So, kind of interesting. He may bounce around in the WHL before he breaks out.
That happens.
AHL or NHL level. And thanks for watching today, Daniel. Great to have you on the stream. Stefan from Sweden. So that's kind of cool.
Oh.
Around the globe. Stefan, I don't know if you're still in the chat,
Steph.
but thank you for tuning in and commenting today. And of course, everybody that's tuned in and contributed. Jim, of course, big thanks to you sitting in for the whole stream today, all the way, pick 1 to 32. Are we making this a tradition? Is that what is year 2?
I don't know, Mike. But I appreciate it. And you know I love being on your show. And you and I have a pretty good connection over the years. So it goes back to pre-team. So I'm always pleased to be on here with you, bud.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Jim and I, just so if you don't know, we go back before the Kraken even existed. We were Twitter pals for many years. And we also went through the Kraken season ticket holders selection process, which was very interesting, very unique, not only in how people picked seats, but the timing. You know, it was right in the middle of COVID. The stadium was still being built. Nobody got to see their actual view. And Calgary's pick is in real quick. Matvey Gridin. I'm probably saying that wrong. Calgary, second pick of round 1. Gridin is the pick at number 28. But yeah, I don't know, Jim, if you want to rattle off some of the memories from back then. We've talked about it a few times, but
yeah. So all I know is like in the early days, you tended to group. That's just what was great about Twitter and now X, whatever, is you tended to gravitate towards people with the same interest. And Mike and I, and there was probably about a handful of about 5 people that in a little circle that we would use to communicate and try to get as much inside information between us as we could on the process, the dates things were happening, the selections of seats. And we were able, we had a nice little network of being able to do some backdoor homework to figure out where we wanted to be. We could pass around some cheat notes and everything. It was kind of cool. But then again, all those early days prior to the first puck drop were so, I wish I could relive them again because they were so cool. You know, there was that one guy, Shark, what was he called? Sharksy or whatever. He would do all the concepts of the uniforms and everything. Remember that? Shark. What was this guy's? I don't see him much posting at all anymore, but he was the guy that did all the concepts of names versus jersey concept. And he was fun to pay attention to.
I think he
And
was one of the
we just had
first
a
to
nice,
do a Kraken concept, actually.
yeah, no doubt. Because he had done others. He did Vegas back when they were in the same process. Um, it was just really cool to lean on people. We would share notes every day, like, here's my updated seat schedule of what's been taken, what's not, what's available. And we would go back and forth. I can't, what pick did you have, Mike? We were 825.
Oh,
Do you remember?
10 or no, 1080
Okay. That
or
sounds right.
1280.
Yeah.
It was something 80. It was
Yeah. I remember
early
that.
1000s.
Yeah. So it was fun.
I just got a
And
message
then,
here. I'll update you in just a second. But yeah, go ahead.
no, it was just those early days. I've talked to Chris many times, my associate at Kraken Fancast. Um, he we lived those days, from naming the team in groups of, 10 people at a pub, just going over it 2 years in advance, like, oh, what's the name going to be? I want this, I want that, all that stuff. And it just carried us, the excitement level for years up until that first Henry's Pub, the announcement by the NHL and the acceptance of getting a team bid and everything. I was like, wow, this is it, man. All the media around, all the Canadian media in town. It was just those moments are just the best, period,
Yeah, a
But
lot
here
of
we
fun
are.
to kind of go down memory lane with that. But
But
I
here
do
we are.
remember exchanging what seats were still available, because you got like a 2 week
Yep.
window where you could log in and look at what seats were still available, and then some seats would come back onto the market if the contract wasn't executed, et cetera, et cetera. So there were, you'd think, oh, well, these seats are out of play, but then all of a sudden, a week later, maybe they were back in play. So there was some of that happened too. It was
Well,
pretty entertaining.
yeah, we were getting it to where the people that were ahead of us, if we had connections and were friends,
Yeah.
would share the information of where the last printout, which was very helpful to you coming up, right?
Yeah.
So it was nice. I mean, here we go. Boy, this I'll tell you what, this is a scouting system right here.
So here's
Wyatt
Dallas
John-
at pick 29. Hemming goes right wing, another Finnish player.
Yeah, these Dallas scouting system is top level. And they've proven it over and over. Wyatt Johnson, man.
Yeah, that kid, I could watch him play
Jeez.
all day.
Yeah,
What
and that was a
a
surprise
player.
off the board pick.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Maybe we'll talk a little bit about kind of what the scouting process and maybe if you have any insight into, or even just the approach maybe that you might take. But I do want to play a video. I just got this message. Paul Buxton, of course,
Paulie.
lifelong San Jose Sharks fan from San Jose, lives in Seattle now, obviously a Kraken fan as well. But Paul wanted to chime in. He sent me a couple other videos that I'm going to put in the post cut down. We're going to do an audio podcast of this as well. Obviously going to cut it down lengthwise and maybe post a video in conjunction with that. But this is from Paul. Let me load the video in. Give me just a second here. And this is his walk and talk. He said, a la, sorry about that. Darren Brown, Sound of Hockey, always does the post-game walk and talk. So this is Paul Buxton's walk and talk, reacting to the San Jose Sharks and the Seattle Kraken first-round picks.
What's up, folks? Paul here again with a post-draft party walk and talk. Kind of very original idea, I know. Well, it was an interesting draft. We didn't go with the defenseman. We took Berkeley Catton with the 8th overall pick.
Okay, so we'll start this over again. We'll cut that out. So here it is with sound. Paul Buxton reacting to the NHL draft.
What's up, folks? Paul here again with a post-draft party walk and talk. Kind of very original idea, I know. Well, it was an interesting draft. We didn't go with the defenseman. We took Berkeley Catton with the 8th overall pick. I think a lot of folks were very surprised about that, especially given that a lot of those names mentioned, Zeev, Buyam, and Zane Parak, it dropped. But I'm excited about Catton's offensive potential, and I'm excited to see sort of what we're going to do on day 2 to maybe get fill in the defensive prospects back with the second round wizardry that Ron Francis usually does. So excited to see what's going on, and go Kraken.
All right, so that was Paul's take. I kind of like that idea. Maybe a couple of defensive opportunities they can go after tomorrow. I'm not going to be live for that one, but I don't know, Jim. Like, you expected a defenseman, we ended up going forward. You were hoping for a forward, so.
Well, like I said, I thought it seems like most of the teams are grabbing D early these days. You heard me. Forward's fine. I like forwards. I actually have Callan in the top three picks in that range for us. So it's there. I'm okay with it. I'm not worried about it, and I think I barely heard Paul. Like I said, there's a delay on there. I love his Darren Brown walk and talk. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
and the fact that it was post live of what happened. That's kind of cool. Tomorrow he was big touch on tomorrow's a different day. I'm probably going to work on that and pick up some. Yeah, I'm not worried. I agree. The team knows what they're doing. You were talking about the scouting process and things like this. Like, what's the typical? It's morphed over the years, obviously, because of it all. Really, the whole analytics game has changed it quite a bit. You had the eye test scouts that have been in there for years. Back in the day, there was 3 to 5 per club. Now it's still like 3 to 5, maybe. Calling college, North American junior, and then the European scene. You usually have 1 scout per whatever. And now with analytics, you move in the analytic team, and it really took off during COVID because they couldn't go out and watch stuff. So they had all the video work. Same with the video coaching, same thing. They worked together. And that's where the analytics side really picked up. And at one time, I remember doing some research on this. Toronto had like 7 analytics. We had 5 at one time, 6, I believe. So, and me, I'm an old school test guy. I'm fine with everything. I think there needs to be a perfect balance. And between the two, the communication has to be great between the two. And that's one of the reasons you got Catton, is they came to a conclusion with him on the ranking paper at 8, where he was actually rejected. This is what they want. And it was a combination of both those sides, the eye test and the computer, that got him there. And, a lot of people think like, well, some clubs focus on the WHLs in town. There's a little more emphasis on that. That's not true at all, because Ronnie's an OHL guy. Forever he was heavy on the Sioux and the OHL. I joked around that second year when he was told so much out of the O that I thought, look at old Ronnie touching his roots in the O.
right.
And, it's just it's just how it works out. And I think we'll all be happy, but that the scouting has changed. Same bottom line end result, though. It's a team working together, sitting down, having their weekly meetings, what have you. And they ultimately go with what they think is the best at that position, whether it's positional and or best player available.
Rangers pick in at number 30, EJ Emery, 6'3", foul player, 183 pounds, defenseman. Lots of good qualities to this player as well. Surrey, BC, right? So love the smile.
Good hockey.
It's I just can't state it enough. And so quickly, 61 games. He's not a scorer, right? This is a pure defender. He's not going to be a scoring threat. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of restate how fun it is to watch these guys get their name called and kind of accomplish that goal. And I think it's really cool for the families, everything, all the backing support, the teams, the coaches, the youth hockey, et cetera, everything that these guys go through, the billet families, you could go on and on. It takes a whole village to raise a professional hockey player, and kind of cool to see a lot of dreams come true today. Just a little on the sentimental side of things. But Jim, I did find this for you. Let me pop this up on the screen. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah, I see it.
And I found this on Reddit, so I don't know if I can do a photo credits, but this is Paul Maurice.
And that's not even his earliest.
This was his first game behind the bench for Hartford. Oh, also against the Sharks. Maurice is assistant coach.
Yes. He got it right after that. That's right. That's great.
So there's a young Paul Maurice now, many years later, Stanley Cup champ.
Yep.
Kind of cool.
Good for him.
All right, let's see where we're at here. We're getting down to it. Again, thanks so much, Jim, Kraken Fancast. If you don't know who that podcast group is, Jim is a big part of that. And please go subscribe, check out their content as well. They do great episodes pretty much, once every couple of weeks during the season, right?
Well, now we're down to about 1 week, actually. We bumped it up just because we have to, just to be relevant with current events and what's going on. First 2 weeks, we bump it up. We try to make it happen every time. Chris is on top of that. We've got a great producer as well, Jay, and then Nathan is our fan boy, so he's taking the perspective of just fan kind of guy's input. He's hit and miss a lot of times with guys. He's got a young kid playing hockey, and he's got a busy life. So we roll the tape, man, and the show goes pretty fun to do. They average 45 minutes to an hour. You're going to hear some good input.
Great show. I try to tune in as often as I can. We've got a lot of great podcasts in the Seattle market already, and not just podcasts. We've got a lot of great media outlets, a lot of great journalists covering the team. I don't pretend to be a journalist. I provide the fan perspective here at Sasquatch NHL. But I could go on and on down the list. Where I think we're lucky the presence that we have in the hockey community. It just continues to build. We've got new groups, like I mentioned today. Beneath the Waves, they just launched a YouTube channel. They do some great in-game reaction and things like that. So it's been a great group of just a portion of the community here in the Seattle area coming together and rallying behind Kraken hockey and doing some cool things for the community too. Some of the volunteerism that's happened and group efforts over the years already. So we're going to keep that going in the future. And we always try to do the meetups at the Living Wall during games. It's just been great to be a part of it, and it's always an honor and pleasure to have you on the show, Jim, and be a part of all this. So we're getting down to it here, though. We're at pick 31 for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Berkeley Catton is your newest Seattle Kraken. I think most people thought Kraken were going to go in the direction of the defender, and maybe that's where they'll go tomorrow. But today they picked up a forward, trying to address some scoring issues, and that's going to be the theme going into training camp and into season 4 as a franchise. They didn't score enough goals last season, and it's not an easy thing to do and just change immediately. But I think that systemically, the problems were basically that. They just didn't score enough. Goaltending was much better last season. Defense was much better. Just didn't score enough goals. Okay, so Maple Leafs at pick 31, and then the Flyers are going to wrap up round 1 with the 32nd pick, unless there's a trade, of course.
There's two in this first round, right?
Yeah.
Trade.
So here's a quote from Sound of Hockey kind of weighing in on Berkeley Catton. Undersized, doesn't match organizational need necessarily, but this kid has elite offensive talent. He's been playing in the Kraken's backyard in Spokane. So right here in Washington State, already an engaged fan base in Spokane, and now the Kraken are going to get to see what this kid can do. 54 goals, 62 assists. last season. So 68 games in the WHL. And so justifiably called an elite offensive talent. Maybe more of that, similar to Yager Fergus in that size and stature department. But
And we will be scouting him within a week.
yes. Gonna go do our post-draft
I can't
homework.
wait.
So it looks like the Leafs took Ben Danford at pick 31, and the Philadelphia Flyers now on the clock to wrap things up in round 1. Jim, maybe take us into the sunset a little bit here. Give us some of your final thoughts as we get towards the last pick. I don't want to keep you too long after, obviously. We've been at this for a good 3 hours,
Okay.
almost 4. But
Is it
yeah,
been
maybe
long?
just final thoughts as we go into the last pick of round 1.
Final thoughts. Well, I'll just say this. The draft has been going on since what late 60s. Just know that the player you get doesn't automatically mean they're going to make the club the next day. They may not make it 2 or 3 years. They may not make it at all. There's always that. Try not to be disappointed in not getting the pick you thought you wanted, because that happens all the time. Berkeley Captain was ranked at 8, and we got him at 8. The team, the draft team, the scouts know what they're doing. We think they do, and we know they do. They selected the man they wanted. That's fine. All we do is we got 9 picks in this draft, I believe, and we're going to go through it. And remember, our second draft was outstanding. I believe it was an 89 rank. We've got all those prospects sitting there, getting seasons. Some are going to play them, some are going to get down. It's just the way it is. You never know. Going in, I like to think that coming into the depth camp, I'm probably going to get every day, just because that's the way it is for me. I'm going to really look at these guys closely, and I enjoy that probably as good as any part of the season when you don't get to camp, actually. I'm going to look at them hard, and I'm going to evaluate them. And then just know that we've got to see coming up here, and shoot for a double at a minimum here on the regular season. Who knows what the roster is going to look like? Probably going to lose a few going in, and I'm really pumped to see what happens in this FK situation. We're either going to spend some money big time, but who we're going to get, we don't know. Type of player. I don't think they're going to go with the typical mid-range player. I think it's your forward coach, the new system. Let's just go out by player. We got 23.5 mil, I believe, on the cap right now. That's huge damage. We got some people we got to sign. We got some people we let go at possibly 3.5, and other things going away. Don't be discouraged about your favorite players leaving. It happens in this league. It happens in the salary cap life. It's a bummer. We own jerseys. They go away. We cry. We get happy when the next guy steps to play. Well, so it's just game. Just love it. You've got an NHL team in Seattle. We've all loved it to this point. We've had some ups, we've had some downs. Now we got Bowsman in town. Let's see what we can do here. And it's time to get excited for season 4.
Absolutely. A whole new chapter coming here for the Kraken going into their 4th season. We're going into the last pick of round 1 here in the 2024 NHL draft. One other note too, Jim, this is the last year of a centralized draft. So next year teams are going to be in different places, whole different look. So I don't know if that will last for a long time or how long that'll go, but this is kind of the last year of this format of the draft and how it's approached as far as collecting all the teams together at one place. So,
which I've always loved. I like all the tables. I like seeing the 15 people still sit at the tables and the walk up and everything. And now that sounds like we're doing more of an NFL-based type situation, correct? Which probably would involve more pomp and circumstance in a different way, I guess. How do you talk to yourself? If you're Frank Grandma about it. So, I don't know if it's the dollars are behind that or what, but or TV contracts, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I don't really know how it's going to look, but at least this era of how the NHL draft occurs is kind of coming to an end. So yeah, and this draft itself is coming to an end. So thanks again, Jim, for hanging out for the entirety of round one. Thanks again to all the people that have contributed to this episode here at Sasquatch NHL. Like I said, I am going to cut this down, produce it into a podcast episode, so be on the lookout for that in the coming days with some additional analysis and clips that I wasn't able to play live today. So thank you guys for being a part of this channel, being part of the community, and let's just keep it going. Kraken, new chapter, season 4, some new players, maybe some breakouts happening. Shane Wright possibly getting into that starting roster. We'll see.
Yes.
But yeah, free agency, and Jim kind of brought this up. I will say that they haven't been shy about, at least in some of the messaging and emails and such, that they're going to be aggressive, and maybe that means they are going to make a splash. Maybe they are going to spend some dollars on a sniper or some sort of offensive talent. That wouldn't surprise me. So we'll see what happens, but you've got to figure out your extensions for Maddie. You've got to figure out your identity a little bit. You've got to score more goals. And I think that is the main emphasis this offseason for Seattle.
100% on the same page.
And wouldn't you know it, Philadelphia has traded the last pick of round 1 to the Edmonton Oilers. So let's put Edmonton back on the board here. Flyers trade out of that pick. So we get a whole extra 2 minutes of Oilers on the clock now, just to drag this out a little bit longer. But I'm out of topics to discuss. So, Jim, at this point, you can talk about whatever you want.
Oh, boy. Well, okay. I hope to see some of the usual suspects at Dev Camp. Most of you media folks and or podcast folks or who have you, and because I enjoy seeing your faces and I enjoy talking to you and sharing notes, and you know who you are. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to, finishing out this summer here because I still got some vacations going on. And then getting back to hockey again in late September for the regular camp. And then hopefully by that time we'll have those contracts signed and extensions signed and so on and so forth. So we can begin to look at the actual roster and see what we can do here. And we're got a new TV contract. King is involved. This is going to be neat. So there's a lot of changes to look forward to here because a lot of us were a little uptight with what went on with all the nonsense with the root subscriptions and all that stuff. And by the way, Piper is back now. They listened. They heard a squawk and they listened. Think about that. That doesn't happen anymore, people. So be happy about that. Piper Shaw, thank you for being top at what you do. You deserve it to come back. And we're very thankful for that, okay? Because you're joining a great team that's always been there, and you were part of that originally. So we're happy. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of people opening night when the schedule released too. We got to keep up on that.
Yep.
And the FA market, everything. So there's plenty to do, but also enjoy your summer, people. The weather hopefully is going to turn around here, not be so kind of grayish, questionable. Is it going to rain today type of deal? And then we'll be back on Hockey Talk late September and tune into Mikey's show because he's got the best video show going on YouTube as far as hockey and Kraken related, as far as I'm concerned. And then hit all those other podcasts that you love and hopefully some guests on. And then you know what? Come into Mikey's show and try to knock me off the top because that trophy needs to be passed around.
Yeah, so we've mentioned it, but Jim, back-to-back champion in the game day prediction challenges that we do over on x.com. Sasquatch NHL, I do it for every Kraken game. Who scores the first goal? That's the whole shtick. There's nothing too complicated about it. But Jim has found success 2 years in a row. So congrats again, Jim. The pick of the Edmonton Oilers is in. It's Sam O'Reilly, 32nd. That caps off round 1 is complete now. And what a day. Lots of unpredictable picks, players up and down throughout the rankings, some surprises, some not surprises up top. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. And like Jim said, thank you for the support here. Also, go support your other podcasts and content creators, journalists, media outlets here in the Seattle market, or whatever market you're in. If you're a new viewer or returning viewer, I do appreciate you guys being here for this episode. Let's say so long to Jim. He's probably been ready to go for a while now, but Jim, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. I'll probably see you here soon this summer in between vacations, okay?
Yes, thank you very much, Michael.
All right. Okay, you guys, that's going to do it for today's stream. All 32 picks are in. Seattle Kraken taking Berkeley Catton there at number 8. So a whole new chapter starting for the Kraken as we approach free agency July 1st. We'll see what happens. Matty Beniers, Ellie Tolvanen, maybe extensions coming soon, maybe a captain, and some more identity questions being answered for the Kraken here as we approach season 4. That's going to do it for season 3 here on Sasquatch NHL. I mean, I'm going to have a few things and content and episodes through the summer, but the official season 3 is over with this draft now in the books. I do appreciate all the support. Check out the podcast over on your audio platforms if you don't already. Subscribe here on YouTube, and I really appreciate you guys being here for this stream and this episode. We'll talk to you again soon. Enjoy your summers. Get outside. Enjoy the sunshine. And we'll talk to you again on another episode real soon here at Sasquatch NHL. See you guys.